My name is Ray Mielzinski. I have a stage name Ray Mallow. I was in a rock group for years in Chicago. I owned a record label, Baradonna Records, out of Chicago. I was born July 13th, 1944. I tell everybody it was Friday the 13th, but it was actually Thursday night, late Thursday night. Just my little joke. My mom was 29 years old when she gave birth to me. 1 hour later, she was 30 years old because her birthday was the next day. So you see how people age quickly around me. 1 year in 1 hour. I want to tell everybody here I've been walking for 20 years in Pahrump carrying the Bill of Rights and the flag. I stand for the Constitution and the right of the people. And my favorite expression is, keep the faith and power to the people.
Hello, my name is Jerry Butler. I've been a Pahrump resident for over 6 years. I've been noticing a lot of issues that I do want to correct, but it's not here for that right now. I'm telling you who I am. I am an American soldier. I am a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and I live the Army values. I will always place a mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am disciplined, physically, mentally tough, trained, proficient in my warrior task and drills. I am an expert. I am a professional. I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy all the enemies of the United States in close combat. I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier, and that's what you'll be getting as a sheriff. 2 for 1.
Should I say hoorah after that? I don't know. There you go. I'm Tony DeMeo. I'm running as candidate for sheriff of Nye County. I have over 41 years police experience. I have 27 years managerial experience. I have over 3,000 hours of managerial training. I'm a member of the, I actually served for 16 years in Nye County as a deputy, as a bailiff, and 12 years as sheriff. I'm a graduate at the FBI Academy, and I've seen what's happening in the sheriff's office, and I was called back to service. And being a U.S. Navy veteran and being a police officer over 41 years, service is what we do, and that's why I'm here.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to this. Thank you for coming to this debate. My name is Joe Moffitt. I'm running for the office of yeah, I'm running for the office. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I'm running for the office of sheriff for Nye County. I was born in Akron, Ohio, and was a, excuse me. I'm sorry. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, and I moved to Las Vegas, where I became a police officer and worked for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I then took a job with the Gaming Control Board as an enforcement agent with the Las Vegas Gaming Control. I moved out of Las Vegas to Pahrump 16 years ago to get to a...
Joe, your time's up. Thank you.
I'm Dave Champion, and thank you for coming out to get informed today. I believe the government serves us best when it establishes a framework of laws by which we can experience what Thomas Jefferson referred to as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At the county level, those laws are enforced by the sheriff. Those laws must be enforced with fairness, with accuracy, and above all else, with intelligence and the spirit of doing what is best for the community. Sadly, that does not describe the NCSO that I've experienced over my many years of living here. There are some great deputies here, but unfortunately they're overshadowed by the many deputies who can best be described by words like unethical, unprofessional, childlike behavior, false arrests, and even more. I intend to stop all of that. Bring NCSO around 180 degrees, and as your constitutional sheriff, create a sheriff's agency that we can all finally be proud of. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Asa Culkin, and I'm running for Nye County Sheriff. I was actually born in Nevada, born in Carson City. I'm a lifetime Nevada resident. I moved to Pahrump with my family in 1994, went to school here, graduated from Pahrump Valley High School, and since then I have joined the law enforcement career with the state of Nevada with the Department of Public Safety. I have many years of experience there. I have training in crisis intervention. I have training in many other aspects of the job. And not only those, I have a lot of things that you can't learn in school or in training. It's the character, and the character that at the top of that agency is going to fall all the way through down to the deputies that you visit on the streets. Thank you.
My name is David Hebert, and I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I was lucky enough to serve in all levels, from the U.S. Air Force, where I started, to a police officer in Arcadia. Went through Class 56, so that was my post academy down there. And then I went on to a deputy sheriff Northern Cal. I went on to the federal government. I retired as the Fugitive Task Force Commander out of Fresno. I have a lot of anti-terrorist work, but I have 13 years of command experience of captain and above. So there isn't a job that I haven't done. And that makes it unique, because you can't command if you don't know what your people are supposed to be doing. So I just want to say thank you for showing up. I know you guys are busy, and let's get this thing started.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to go to the first question, which will be started with Gerald Butler. What qualifies you to hold the office of the Nye County Sheriff?
What qualifies me is because I believe in the Constitution, and I will defend it with my life. I will defend everything, and I will defend your rights with my life, because I am one of you guys. I might not have that much police force experience, but I have life experience. I've had to work every single job that you guys had to work. I had to start at the bottom and work my way up. I know what it's like to feel lonely. I know what it's like to feel sad. I know what it's like to feel homeless. I know what it's like to have my back up against the wall. And I will support and defend you guys, and I will make sure that your rights are protected. I'll fight the federal government, I'll fight the state, I'll even fight my own guys if I have to. I am ready to put my life on the line to protect your guys' rights and to make Pahrump a better place to live. Thank you.
We'll have Tony DeMeo go next, and then we'll move to the left.
Thank you all for being here. Well, what's my qualification running for sheriff? Actually, I was sheriff for 12 years. I have 41 years in law enforcement, and the majority of that was in community relations, which is the most important job we have as sheriff, making sure that the community is first. That's our job. We work for you, you empower us. During my time as sheriff, I had to battle the courts, I had to battle the federal government. I actually had to battle sometimes people on my own, when they do misconduct and I have to terminate them, which I have done. This job has a lot of dimensions. I'm the only candidate here that actually worked as a street deputy and then for the Nye County Sheriff's Office. I saw it from the ground up. My K9 dog and I patrolled the streets of Nye County, and I've been working for Nye County Sheriff 16 years, and I have actually 19 years as a certified peace officer. My certification is still valid, and I have the highest certification you can get in the state of Nevada, executive post.
Again, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. I want you to know that I came here to Pahrump to enjoy a small town with the wonderful people that are living here in Pahrump. It looked like the place I wanted to be the rest of my life. I've seen some problems here with some of the criminals and some of the deputies who look down on us as not as their peers, but as the people they are supposed to be defending and protecting. And I have seen a lot of problems with the way that the schools are handled as far as looking out for our children and our grandchildren. We haven't had any changes in any way of taking care of the schools, and it's gotten to the point where we, the people of Pahrump, have to do something for our children. They come to this school to learn, not to be afraid, to feel safe at all times. That's how they're going to be the people that we want to be happy with the town of Pahrump. Thank you.
I come from Southern California, where I have an extensive business background. The business that's relevant to the question of why I'm qualified to be sheriff is I operated a company that provided private law enforcement services to low-income, high-crime environment. I had under my command approximately the same number of officers as our sworn personnel in the Nye County Sheriff's Department. So I've already commanded an organization very, very similar to the Nye County Sheriff's Department in size, scope, and activity. Further, having done it from the private sector, I had to learn a lesson that most government employees never have the opportunity to learn, which is do the most with the least. So we're not taking advantage of taxpayer dollars. That's one of, I'm sure, something we all share in common. We would like the most to be done with the taxpayers, the tax dollars we have to pay. I've already discussed the fact that I believe there's a significant improvement that can be made in the Sheriff's Department. And over the years, I've made a study of what constitutes good quality policing and what does not. And as I said earlier, I intend to turn this agency around and make it something we can all be proud of. Thank you.
So the question was, what makes me qualified? So according to the statute, to be qualified to run for sheriff, as we all know here, all you have to be is 21 and have a post certificate. But I'm far past that. Not only do I currently hold a post certificate, I have my basic, intermediate, and advanced certificates. I have countless hours of management training, like I said, crisis intervention training. I also have instructional certifications. And what a lot of people don't have, I have the ability to work with other agencies. I understand that Sheriff's Office alone is not able to handle or not able to come up with the solutions necessary to reduce crime and all these things on its own. That's a community problem that needs to be acted on together. And as my job now as a law enforcement officer with Division of Parole and Probation, I have a lot of experience working with the courts, working with drug rehabilitation facilities, working with employers, working with all these different agencies and community members to work together to find those solutions at reducing recidivism and thank you.
My name is David Hebert, and like I said, I have 30 years in this game. I've worked at all levels. One of the things I'm most proud of as being a task force commander for the Marshal Service, I was the only federal officer who got the California Attorney General's Award for making departments work together. That's the key. You got to work together. We need to train together. We need to go out and seek other training, because what I've seen here, it's a little bit of them versus us mentality, and we need to get over that. We need to hire outside personnel to get some of this incestuous stuff to go away, and we need to work together with you because you're the boss. And so we can take all the things that I've learned, put it together, come out with a pretty good solution.
Question is my qualifications. Let me tell you about qualifications. I've lived in Pahrump for 40 years. I put in catfish ponds because I wanted to retire and just take life easy. My brother Rich, now deceased, approached me one day as I was fishing in that pond, and he said, people are being abused here. They're being railroaded by the system. And you're sitting here fishing in this pond? You ought to be ashamed. I looked into it and I said, by golly, he's right. So I picked up the flag and the Bill of Rights, and I've been walking for the last 20 years. May the 26th of this month is 20 years. I decided the best place to find out what's going on is the court system. I've been sitting in on the courts for 16 years now on a regular basis. Not just one day a month or 2 days a month, every day that's possible where I can get there, I sit in on the courts, and I know the problems. And I see the problem starts with the sheriff's department. And I see the badges testify, and I know we got a serious problem here. And now I can be in the position to change that. Not for me, but for all of you out there, because that's what it's all about. People are getting abused every day, and it's got to stop. The system is out of control. There's no justice in our justice system. Thank you.
It'll be going to Tony DeMeo next. If I can ask if you guys can stay at least near your name markers there, because Jason's going to be leaving soon, and so we won't have a camera person to be able to chase you down. So if you guys can stay at least near your seat there, that would be great.
All right, question number 2. What is the single most important change you would like to make if elected to sheriff, and how would you approach doing that?
The most important change we have, with a couple, but the most important change we have to do is stop this turnover rate. When I ran against my predecessor, the turnover rate was 35%. When I left the sheriff's office, we had the lowest turnover, one of the lowest turnover rates in the state of Nevada. Right now, it's worse than my predecessor because it's over 40, almost 50%. The deputies are leaving, and without deputies staying, we don't have the core of protecting the citizens of Nye County. So we have to work to make sure that the deputies are starting to realize that there's a new management, because that's what's actually stopped a lot of this, making sure they don't live over the hill, which they're doing now. We even have managers that are living in Las Vegas. They're getting salaries here, and they're living across on the other side of the mountain. We have to stop this. We have to bring the deputies back here where they serve, and we make sure they're part of the community, and that's one of the most important things we do. There are other issues. The budget is an issue altogether. We had looked at this, and this is a problem, but the most important thing is the people that knock on your door, come to your house on crisis, are the most important asset we have, along with the other most important asset is the citizens of Nye County.
We'll have Joe Moffett go next, and we'll move to the left.
Same question?
Same question.
All right, I believe that we have a problem as far as the deputies in this town, and I think that we should have more training than they're getting right now. I understand that they don't have the training that most police officers have. They don't have a qualification, and they're doing it to some of the deputies, but not all of the deputies. I believe that we have to look at this problem and bring our deputies up to date with the way things should be done in law enforcement. And I think that, as I said before about taking care of the children, if we should get our children, like I said, to feel better and to be happy to go to school and not worry about different problems that we're having in these schools. It's going on all over the country, and I believe that the small town that we have, we can be the ones that lead and make it so the children learn and are possibly a ride-along program where they...
Thank you, Joe. At this point in history, there are so many corrections that need to be made with NCSO, but I'll just focus on one, and that is mindset. The deputies need to have the right mindset, what I call the heart for service, and that has long since been lost on this agency. Tony mentioned the most important asset is the deputy who comes to your door. But how does that help us if he or she doesn't have the mindset, doesn't have the heart for service, and doesn't see you as particularly significant? They're just going through the steps so they can collect a paycheck. There's far too many deputies on NCSO that have exactly that mindset now, and the stories that have been shared with me by literally hundreds of our fellow citizens and neighbors are appalling. So the number one thing we need to change is mindset. Thank you.
So the number one thing that I see that needs to be changed is the actual culture in the sheriff's office. A lot of policies, a lot of procedures can be changed, but those things won't affect the actual culture, the mindset it will give you that the police have on out in the community. Right now, it seems that the sheriff's deputies have the mentality that they're above the people of Nye County. What they're misunderstanding is that they are members of the community. They're not above them, they're part of it. And the second part of that question was, how are you going to actually do it? You can't give them more and more, quantity is not the answer, more and more training hours. The question is, what kind of training are you giving them? You give them more and more military-like training, more and more weapons training, more and more that kind of training, you're not going to change that character of that individual deputy out there that you're seeing in the communities. You need more communications trainings. Think about it. The majority of the job of a police officer is out there talking and engaging with the community. If all you know is weapons and tactical procedures and things like that, you're going to be a terrible officer in the long run. So that's how I'm going to change it. That's just one of the things how I'm going to change it. Thank you.
There's a lot of things that go on that need to be trained. Training is very, very important, and what we need to do with that is go out and get training. They give it away free everywhere. When I got here, I first talked to the sheriff and I said, the Marshal Service built a $10 million facility down in San Bernardino. Have you ever been there? No, never heard of it, but we can't go because we can't afford it. It's free. We have to get out of the way that we used to do it here to how we can do it. Some of the other things is to professionalize, give our deputies something to look forward to. They do the same old thing, they go to the same old houses. One of the things that we have right now that we don't have on the department is computer forensics. We don't have that stuff here. A friend of mine who's recognized in 37 states in the federal court will donate the gear. It takes two things, is knowledge, that's why I'm not doing it, and the other thing is the computer equipment to get it done. Then once you do it, now you add another dimension to what you do and you sell it. There's nothing that says we can't sell that stuff. These guys are waiting 4 or 5 years to get their cases. They're losing cases everywhere and they'll pay for us to do it. There's nothing to say we can't be businessmen as well as good cops.
All the way down to Ray. Ray will be next and we'll finish with Gerald.
I'm up to bed. All right. Well, they call me the flag man, and I have a 10-point pledge to the citizens of Nye County. And I want to let you know what I'm going to do as far as when I become sheriff. If the flag man runs for sheriff of Nye County again, the following is what we can expect from him, and you certainly can, because I'm a man of my word. No longer will the citizens of Nye County have to bow down to the sheriff's badge or to those of his deputies through fear or intimidation. As sheriff, I will respect the people. I will honor the Constitution, emphasizing the Bill of Rights. People will be treated fairly and with respect. My department will never search without warrants. No roadblocks. This, what they're doing now is absurd. No stacking of charges. One may be legitimate, others not. No high-speed chases. People die in this all the time. No high-speed chases. That's a thing of the past. We don't have to chase them because they got expired license plates or something like that, and that's what's going on. No entrapment. It's an unlawful technique. No more planting of purses in parking lots to catch dishonest citizens. What kind of craziness is this? No more abuse of power and warning tickets on minor traffic infractions. This is what I'm going to do. And this is just the start of it, because I got a lot more ideas, but I don't want to put out a 3-page pamphlet to tell everybody what I'm going to do besides this. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think the biggest problem is, and it really rolls down to in a nutshell, it's leadership. We need better leadership. Everything that everybody's been saying comes from leadership. The Army says that leadership is a process of inspiring others to complete the mission by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. FM 7-22.7 says that a leader cannot ask anyone to do anything that he's not ready, willing, and able to do. And I will treat you with respect. My men will treat you with my personnel, excuse me, I'm sorry. My personnel will treat you with respect. If they don't, I'll get them. Because I'm the one that has to answer to you. It's a circle. So I treat them with respect, I'll monitor them, I'll educate them, and I'll motivate them. They will do the same for you. I will make sure that they know the Constitution, and especially Article 6 of the Constitution, which is called the Supremacy Clause. It says that no law, federal, state government, no constitution or treaty can supersede the Constitution. It must fall within the Constitution, or it is no law at all, it is null and void. Lately, the laws have been impressed into you are null and void. Even if they do fall in the Constitution, it still has to go through a ratification process. 10th Amendment, yes, gives a state the right to make laws, but they still have to follow with the Supremacy Clause. I want to educate you, I want to motivate you. I don't want to give out tickets unless I absolutely necessarily have to, and I would hate to have to arrest anybody. So I want to educate, motivate everybody. And I will monitor, and I'll make sure that everybody's rights are protected.
All right. Do we have any rebuttals? And then I believe Tony DeMeo has an extra 15 seconds because you were called out on that question, or at least your name was mentioned. So everybody can have a 30-second rebuttal if they want to, and Tony, you actually get another 15.
What rebuttal was that? I couldn't hear you.
There was, somebody said something about a comment that you had made. If you don't write it down, I don't write it down for you. You don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah, no, I'll respond to that. It's leadership. Let me tell you something. When Sheriff Worley put into her academy class that they're the lion tamers and we're the freaking animals. I'm sorry if I upset anybody. Then you have the Nye County Sheriff's Academy. You have the instructor, the head instructor, Nye County Sheriff's Office Academy says, treat them with respect until they no longer deserve it. This is not about the deputies out in the street. It's about the leadership that's in that office right now that's caused deputies to be in fear of saying anything contrary to the sheriff and the management that has failed this county and the citizens, especially in rural areas. That has to go. Once the new sheriff gets in there, the management will start falling in line. And I got news for you, some of the managers are no longer going to be there, and they're already trying to find ways of protecting their positions. Thank you.
Would anyone else like a 30-second rebuttal? No? All right. We'll move on to the next question.
All right. The next question will be start with Joe Moffitt, and it is, how would you approach keeping the public informed about what is happening in the department, and how available would you be to the local media?
I have been thinking of a program that would get together with all the residents of Pahrump, just as we're doing right now. I think this is something that has to be started and go from the residents to the children, and we could have a get-together every 6 to 8 months and have you come in and ask questions just like you're doing now. If you're not happy with something that's going on that you think should be changed, you should get together just the way we are here today and make things better for everyone. And I think that this can be done with the schools, doing it in the schools and doing it out here just like today, to get the people together to make the changes that they think will make this a better town for all of us.
We'll go to Dave next.
As somebody who's been in radio and television for 18 years, I'm not going to have any problem interfacing with the public. I've done it for years. If you go to sheriffchampion.com and you click on policies, you can see all of my, not all of them, the majority of my policies there in video format. That is one example of how I intend to reach out as sheriff. There will be a specific page for the sheriff's department where you will constantly be kept informed of what the sheriff's department is doing. Also, I will have a public information officer. However, the public information officer will be used for lower level information. I will be my own public information officer. The reason for that is you didn't elect the public information officer, you elected me. So I am directly accountable to you, and anything of significance you will hear directly from me. Thank you.
As sheriff, my goal really is to have frequent meetings, town hall seminars, kind of set up to educate the public on current trends that are happening in our agency, issues that have come up in our agency, but also the second part of that question, how will I be available? I will always have an open door policy, so you're free to walk into the sheriff's office and come speak to me one-on-one. Thank you.
Fortunately, I too had a television show on Fox, and so I know how that works, how to communicate, how to get that word out there. I was also the public information officer for the Marshal Service in the state of California. Connections will take you out there, but what I want to do is, the one thing that no one said here is, this is a county elected position, not just Pahrump. And I can tell you, I'm the only one who's been to Tonopah 10 times. Those people out there feel neglected. They need to know just like every one of us needs to know. So we need to get that word to everyone, because their issues are not your issues. And as the sheriff, I'm going to make sure that I represent everyone, not just a few.
All the way down to Ray, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an open book. I meet people every day and I tell them what's going on. I'm at the courthouse every day observing what's happening in the court. People come up to me and they say, Flagman, how long has this been going on? Because it never happened to them before. Because they're getting something, a lot of them are getting railroaded by this system. Charges are stacked against them. They're getting tickets for minor infractions. Unbelievable. Judge Jasperson throws some of these things out because he sees how absurd it is. That if a tire touches a white line, you're going to get a ticket and going to have to pay a $120 fine. He tosses it out. He was a motorcycle cop. He knows what's going on. These 4 bikers, cops out here, they're out of line. They're pushing for the dollar, and it's got to stop. I'll talk to anybody at any time. I'm on the street. People stop and talk to me. I'm at the courthouse, and as sheriff, I will continue to do the same. It's not going to stop just because some kind of title. The title means nothing to me. The thing that's important to me is justice for the people, and that's what this is all about. We got to start with the sheriff's department and start cleaning up the act there, and then we'll go up right through the channels, one by one. Thank you.
I would like to say that I'd be available 24 hours a day, but that's sure that is a lie. That would, you know. The last thing I would want to do is have to sit there and sit in an interview and be like, well, let me check in on that, because that actually makes me very upset when people do that to me. When if they can give me a little bit of time to research it, and if I can't research it that quickly, I get somebody that can answer the question. And just like Mr. Hebert was saying, I do realize that this county is very large. And I can't do everything alone, and I will make sure that I get people that I do trust to help me run this, and then make sure that people that you can trust. You know, I think it's okay for me to fail, but my administration cannot fail, so I will make sure that I put people in my administration that will not allow the administration to fail. And they also can answer on my behalf if they needed to. That's why I will make sure that I'll have people that I can trust and that will be constitutional. And I have 2 very important people that I've been thinking about, and they can address themselves, they know who they are, to make sure that you guys are well informed. My whole goal is to make sure that you are monitored, educated, and motivated in a positive way. So, thank you.
Okay. I originated the Sheriff's Forums, and I originated the Open Door Policy in Nye County Sheriff's Office. When I'm sheriff in that county, that's back on. As far as having a PIO, Deanna knows, bad news, good news, whatever news, I was in front of that camera myself, answering the questions for the press. That is not happening now. They have a deputy that's hired to actually put these video interviews on one way, and they give them out to the press. The press is not allowed to engage the sheriff's office. The transparency that was so promised by the current sheriff's office is gone. especially with access to the press, because they are the eyes and ears, and they answer to you as well. They get the stories and report so you are informed. The sheriff's office is not doing that. I'm not going to hire PIO. I don't want another position. I want somebody out in the street. The last year and a half of my administration, I'll tell you what the sheriff's office was like. Me and the sergeants. Middle management, with the exception of Rick Marshall, who's handling administration, was gone, depleted, slashed because of budget cuts. We still reduced the crime rate. We still had community policing, and we still had deputies in schools. This budget that's bloated by the Nye County Sheriff's Office has none of that. And when I'm sheriff, that's going to be corrected.
Would anyone like to offer any rebuttals? We're all good? All right, next question. We're going to begin with Dave Champion on this. Would you support keeping the Peace Officer Advisory Review Board intact, and do you believe it has been utilized to the fullest extent since its inception?
Thank you. No, I do not support keeping the current format in place. The current format is, in my estimation, worthless. I do have a plan for an entirely new committee review board that will work hand in hand with the Sheriff's Department, but will not be brought inside the Sheriff's Department, because what happens when we bring it inside the Sheriff's Department? It becomes subject to the rules and regulations of the very agency that is supposed to be commenting on. Additionally, I'm also going to create the position of ombudsman. An ombudsman is somebody whose specific job is to speak to the rights of the citizenry insofar as that agency is concerned. The ombudsman will work directly for me and report directly to me. So when citizens have complaints, they will be able to go to my hand-selected ombudsman, explain what the complaints are, and the ombudsman will bring them personally to me, where I will then act on them. Thank you.
The Peace Officer Advisory Review Board. So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's supposed to be a separate entity from the Sheriff's Office, made up of citizens. So these people are not law enforcement. They're trained on policies, procedures of the Sheriff's Office, but they're not part of the Sheriff's Office. And that's to maintain the transparency with the Sheriff's Office. So what happens is you as a citizen has a complaint, and you would submit that complaint to the county manager, which would give it to the board, which I'm not going to be selecting that board. If I select the board, that kind of defeats the purpose of it being an impartial board, correct? So the board would be the board would be members that are selected by the county, not by the Sheriff's Office. And then once it goes through that, the separate entity would take care of the complaint, investigate the complaint, then give it to the Sheriff's Office to conduct their own complaint, and then follow up with that investigation, give a disciplinary action recommendation, and then most importantly to me is the follow up with the actual citizen, letting them know that something actually was done about the complaint. Would I keep that in place? Of course I would keep that in place. Could it be better? Absolutely, because as of right now it's completely, almost entirely unutilized. Thank you.
Not only would it stay, it has to stay, because that's your voice to tell us what we're doing wrong. It's not far off. The bottom of this whole thing is that they're not being used at all right now. I talked to a lot of people who are talking about, oh, I'm on the committee and they never even called me. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. So it goes back to the same question, is it's not working. We have to have people that want to be there. You also get people who want to be there when you actually talk to them. So when you have somebody that can contact them and say, this is what's happening with your case, so they know that they're doing something correctly, then once it all gets to the top and it's all worked out, we get an answer and we go from there. Thank you. Here you go, head boss.
Right now, I think you got one citizens review board, that's me. People are talking to me all the time. What is going on? How long has this been going on? I see the abuse of power on a daily basis because people are getting railroaded by this system. We need someone to listen to the complaints of the people. And it can't be a board that they just name them and say, this is it, and then nothing happens. Just like the other gentlemen have pointed out, nothing is happening with this. We do have to have some way to do this. So we do need a citizens review board. We cannot let the sheriff's department make its own decisions as to hostility in the department, because there is certain things that happen that's whitewashed by the department. IA would investigate themselves. It's ridiculous. Sometimes, like right now in the shooting in the house where at 2 in the morning they went in and killed this guy, they should have had a daytime warrant. Instead they went in at 2 in the morning. I think Clark County is reviewing it, and rightly so, because we cannot let everything stay under covers over here. So that's my opinion, and I just hope that something is done, whether it be me or any of these other gentlemen that are running. Let's do something about it. Let the people be the boss.
Flagman is absolutely right. I think that we shouldn't have we should have a board where everybody who wants to volunteer can volunteer and say anything that they need to say. My put to this is that I actually want to hire what's called an equal opportunity officer. For that board, he's going to actually work with them. He's going to inform them of what the laws are, how to investigate, how to file those reports. He'll be able to actually enforce the reports, but the only thing is that I would like him to actually report to me so I know exactly what's going on so that I can help. But the people do need to have their own say. I also want to put a board for the, I'm calling it Peace Officers Commission, so that my deputies can get together, a group of volunteers that are selected with one another, can have their own say, and they can speak to the equal opportunity officer as well. And they can speak to me. As sheriff, it's my responsibility to make sure that all people's rights are protected. But there's a lot actually involved in being a sheriff. You know, I mean, like I said, I can't do everything on my own, so I do have to hire in, I do have to make sure that people are dedicated to that, and I do have to supersede them and make sure that they are doing their job. That's why it's important for him to report back to me. You know, excuse me here, speaking a little too quickly, tongue's getting tied. Everybody does deserve a say, everybody does deserve, and they do have the power to take action. I just want to make sure that everything flows smoothly. That's why I'll have the equal opportunity officer. His main job is to protect everybody's rights.
There you go, Gerald.
Actually, the police officer review board started under my watch. I supported it. I think the citizens should have a look at what happens in their agency that they own and empower us. The problem with the review board, it's not used. It took them over 1.5 years to get it actually going. And the excuse was, we had to tweak it. We had to tweak it. We had to train the people, which I understand. If I was the sheriff of Nye County, that review board would have been going in April of 2015 because the people would have been trained. The problem was that the sheriff, the members of the union, and the DA got together and they took the teeth out of that police officer review board. I want to put the teeth back. I don't like, and believe me, there'd be people that are running for sheriff that believe to contrary. I hate with a passion corrupt cops. Hate it. They put a stain on all of us who go out there and risk our life. And we're in Police Memorial Week. We have people that sacrifice their life. Ian Deutsch, one of them, under my watch. And I see these people, these police officers that take advantage of the system, and they want to continue doing this. We have to stop it. The people have a right to know what goes on in their sheriff's office. And that's why I supported the police officer review board. Sharon will take credit for it, but it's not hers. It was there because the DA, Brian Kunze, Bone, and the commissioners, and myself, being a leader and answerable to the citizens of Nye County, thought it was a good job. They went in and they basically took some of the teeth out of it, and it's not as strong as it is. Yeah, one review board. Thank you.
This is something that I would have to look into and see how it's handled right now. But I know on most departments they have a group of people that get together, go over all the evidence that they have, and can make a decision on whether there should be any more action taken. I don't know of the program that is with the Sheriff's Department. I've tried to get information from them so I could determine on, like, the questions we're asking right now, but I haven't been able to get anybody who would really sit down and talk with me for fear of getting problems from the sheriff. I'd have to look into this very much to figure out any kind of program that we could use. Right now, I don't have the information I need. Thank you.
Do we have any rebuttals? No? Okay. Next question, we're going to begin with Asa Calkin, and it is, school safety has become a major national concern. What are your plans to address the availability of the Nye County Sheriff's Office resources within our county schools?
Unfortunately, Nye County is not like Clark County, where they have marshals, school police, metro, state police, all these other agencies. So they rely on the sheriff's office. And my goal as sheriff is to work with the superintendent of schools to actually have applicable training in the schools when the schools aren't in session, to make sure that the officers are not running into a situation where they are unfortunately in a situation they don't know, or don't know the layout, don't know the floor plan. We have the ability in Nye County, because we are not a large population, to actually have that on-site training, and that's what I plan on working with the superintendent of schools, so that way I can make our schools safer. So when we're ready to go into action, heaven forbid that happens, that we're prepared and we'll do the best we can. Thank you.
I agree with Asa. We need to make sure that the people in the schools are protected. The shooting in Florida, where all of those young people were killed, I don't see the outrage towards the FBI. None of those guns killed anybody, but the FBI turned 27 clues down that this guy was going to go off because they were looking to find Trump with the Russians. That's where we failed. We don't have a big county, we don't have a lot of money, but my suggestion is we are going to train the people in there, and I'm also going to arm the teachers that are possible to be armed. We have a lot of people that have open carry, there's a lot of people who have CCWs. Those people are going to be there first, and they shouldn't have to wait for me to show up to defend themselves. But we will train together. Thank you.
An armed society is a polite society. When the citizens are armed, crime goes away. Kennesaw, Georgia. Since '87, crime has left Kennesaw, Georgia, because the citizens are packing guns. When you're afraid of fire, you don't throw away the fire extinguishers. And that's what's happening in the school system. They don't allow guns. They don't let the teachers carry guns. They don't let... Instead of looking out for the safety of the school, they're saying, oh, guns are evil. Guns are dangerous. You get somebody trained, somebody that knows about it, somebody with the CCW, that David had said. You get retired officers out here. I'm sure we can procure some who are retired, want to be doing something, and wouldn't take a large amount of money to do it, and protect the schools. Let the teachers carry the guns. Open carry in this county, I want to see more people at Walmart packing open, because it's an open carry state. Even in Clark County they can carry open, except they always get hassled. Here you won't be hassled. Occasionally, some badge doesn't know any better, he may give you a little problem, but just explain it's open carry. So you don't need and I'm also pushing for constitutional carry. This is important. Some states have it, I believe it's 5 states have it now, where you don't need a concealed weapons permit. As long as you're not a convicted felon or convicted of domestic battery, you can carry concealed, carry open. It's absurd to put restrictions on the citizen's right to bear arms. The Second Amendment is what protects all the Constitution. Thank you.
Actually, I've been talking with a lot of the deputies around here. First and foremost, I want to say that the Second Amendment says it will not be infringed upon, and I will arrest anybody that tries to infringe upon it. But we do actually have a program called the Explorer Program. It's where we take kids from 12 to 20 and train them how to be cops. It actually gives me a good doorway to get in there. It gives me a good doorway to work with the kids. It also gives me a good doorway to where I can hire from, because I want people from here who know the town, who know Nye County, and who are invested in it. People who are vested in the town make the best cops because they actually have something to lose. Also, I can hire, that also gets me in the door where I can actually have a deputy there working with these people, making sure that we're doing the right thing, getting information that we need. The best information that we can get is in the schools. Why? Because parents gossip. Guess what happens? And kids listen. We can solve a lot of problems just by being there, listening to kids, working with them, making sure that they're on the right path, and letting them see what they're doing is making an effect on the community. We can have them help clean up the community, and they, by the time they're done, Boy Scouts of America is the one that actually sponsors the Explorer program. So a lot of the money doesn't actually come from us; it's already paid for. I just want to invest a little bit more into it, and then get it a little bit more popular. It's not a very hard thing to do. I mean, it takes 1 or 2 policemen or peace officers to actually do it. Maybe around the school, we can actually start training some of the training some of the teachers to become peace officers and letting them help with the Explorer program. Thank you.
Good question. How come we don't have cops in schools now? We actually have. I looked at the Sheriff's Office table of organization, which if you looked at it, it'd give you a headache because it's all over the place. But there's positions vacant for school resource officers. The sheriff left them vacant. She's claiming that, oh, there's no grants for it. She goes on TV. That's one of the reasons why I'm running, because she's on TV. We're short 45 positions, and we got no school cops. Thank you, letting the rest of the world know that Nye County is open for criminal enterprise and murder of innocents, which she's allowed through her apathy. We had him when I was a sheriff. I support the school. We had him. We had all the schools covered. She takes them out, and she leaves them vacant. Apathy towards the schools and makes our schools unsafe for our innocent. I actually went to Ray Roberts. I know a lot of people don't know this, but I actually am a highly trained hostage rescue instructor. My instructors were members of SEAL Team 6, SEAL Team 2. Now, I'm not a SEAL. They were my instructors, and of course, the members of Red Cell. One of the guys that was in charge of that was Richard Dick Marsenko, who was the commander of SEAL Team 6, founded it. I told, at that time, Superintendent Rob Roberts, that I would actually design a course for the school teachers and for the administrators inside the school to be able to combat, if allowed to, become armed, to take down any kind of suspect, especially in rural areas where the cops are miles away, and able to assess the threat. Thank you so much. That was my plan. Thank you.
If I was elected to be sheriff, or if I wasn't elected to be sheriff, I would share the information that I'm working on at this time with one of they call him the guru of computers, who lives in Las Vegas, makes his living making programs. I've spoke with him on several occasions. He's working on a program that can hook up to the computers in every school, in every room, and anytime that there is a problem which needs assistance and there's possible danger going on in any of the classrooms, all of them will have a button that can be pushed that will awake everyone in the principal's office, in the administration, fire department, police department, and let every one of them people know that there is something going on in that classroom that needs immediate assistance. And like I say, this is a program that he loved it. He's working so hard because he wants to put it in Pahrump and make it for
School resource officer. How did that work out in Parkland, Florida? And then 3 more deputies arrived. And all four of them waited outside while children were, excuse me, waited outside while children were dying. We can ask ourselves, how would that work in Nye County if the Nye County deputies arrived? Would it work the same way? But we don't even need to go to that extent. All we need to say is, what if it takes 4 or 5 minutes for the deputies to arrive? How many of our children can be killed or injured in 4 or 5 minutes that we're waiting for the response? That's why I support arming school staff, not just teachers. There's a lot of people who work in the schools other than just teachers. Provided that, number one, they are volunteers. Number two, they are properly vetted. And number three, they are thoroughly trained. Right down the road from Pahrump, we have one of the finest firearms academies in America. I range mastered out there for years. The training that these school staff need can be attained, because the only thing that can stop an evil man with a gun is a good man with a gun. And only if the good man with the gun or woman is there when the shooting starts. Thank you.
Does anybody have any rebuttals? No, I didn't think so. Next question, we'll begin with David Hebert. Do you view traffic citations as a source of revenue for the office? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. The biggest complaint we have here is from writing tickets as a revenue source. Even when I went up to Tonopah, I almost got ran over by a motorcycle cop coming out of the desert because he was chasing somebody at 100 miles an hour who was only doing 5 miles an hour. The bottom line is this, is not only does the personnel have to pay that ticket, but most of the people that live in this county are older and on a fixed income. And if you get $20 a month on your insurance bill, because that's what happens, that's a lot of money. And a lot of people can't. We live in a time and age where cars are here and we need traffic enforcement. But traffic enforcement for revenue will never happen on my watch.
Yeah, nothing like a little revenue enhancement, because that is what's going on. Anytime, any Tuesday you want to come to the courthouse and see how it's going on, it's totally ridiculous, because Judge Jasperson has 2 sessions, morning and afternoon. Courtroom is usually standing room only, most of them traffic citations for extremely minor offenses. And this is what it's all about, to generate money. Now, what the Nye County has been doing, because it's so easy for them to do it, they give them a parking ticket, say paid $120, nothing on your record, nothing as far as your insurance going up or whatever. A lot of people come in, and I see them on Monday morning. They just want to pay the ticket. They're elderly. They can't afford $120, but they're afraid to go in front of a judge. Sometimes they go in front of the judge, it will be dismissed, because it's just a technicality that they're getting cited for. That's why it's completely out of control now. It's revenue enhancement. It cannot go on. It's bankrupting the people. They're going in your pocket. They're going in everybody's pocket, especially the people who cannot afford it. And this is just absurd what's going on as far as revenue enhancement. That's the term. Stop in some Tuesday. Watch Judge Jasperson for these people, ask him questions and stuff, and occasionally throw one out. And I applaud him for that when he does that, because you don't see a judge too often where they got an easy conviction and they can get $120. Said, no, this, homie, don't play that. This one is out, dismissed.
I have been reading the Constitution quite a bit. There's a lot I can say on this. And the Constitution and the common law does say that if no property has been damaged and nobody got hurt, no crime has been committed. However, it is not unreasonable to pull somebody over if they are being unsafe and to let them know that they are being unsafe and let them go. Or you got an hour, so I would just say, hey, you know what, just chill out for an hour because you're speeding, and then let you go, which is not bad because it also shows that we are present. People are like, oh, it's the cops, we better slow down, because you get that thing going. So I don't think that people should be getting a ticket right away. They should be monitored, they should be educated, they should be motivated. What happens is when you get pulled over, they do read the license plate, which goes under a CDC. Also, your license goes under that CDC. So I can tell if you've been pulled over, and if I had to warn you 3 times, you've written your own story. But you should only get a ticket unless you absolutely necessarily deserve it. That's my take on it. I mean, because when I get a ticket and I don't deserve it, jail time's free. So that's what I'm thinking. But that's what I'm thinking. That's what I would never do it, but that's what I'm thinking, and it does singe the seams on my pants. But, you know, I mean, again, we have to make sure that we are doing the right thing. We're motivating people in a positive way. You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. So, I actually hope I get pulled over by some of the deputies. They're pretty cool, you know. I mean, I'm looking, I was like, hey, you know, that's Deputy Heaney. How's it going, man? Hey, don't pull me over, though, you know.
You hit on a subject that basically hits to my heart. I hate it. In fact, if you go to my website, TonyDeMeo4sheriff.com, I address that. You know who addressed that? The Department of Justice in Ferguson, because that's exactly what they did. They held the court in contempt of the 14th Amendment, and they told the police department, your job is to do constitutional policing, not tickets by revenue. It's wrong. It's wrong. The fact of the matter is, here's the problem in the state of Nevada. It's not an infraction like would be in New York or New Jersey. It's a misdemeanor crime. So now all of a sudden they make you a criminal. For what? Because your tire went over the white line? I mean, thank God we have the judges that look at that and go, hey, this ain't right. I actually have video of the sheriff's office pulling somebody doing 37 miles in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. It's on video. They were going to give him a ticket, but instead they gave him a turkey. Doesn't make any difference. They're pulling you over 2 miles over the speed limit. I heard that up in Tonopah. By the way, I went to Tonopah more than 10 times, so there you go. As sheriff, I went there quite a bit. But I heard that up in Tonopah. They pulled, and I'm going like, I can't believe that. And sure enough, they were being pulled over 2 miles over the speed limit, not realizing that on the radar there's a drift of plus or minus 2 miles an hour. So the sheriff's office here is out of whack. This taxation by ticket is completely wrong. Thank you.
Well, I would be the wrong person to talk to about tickets. When I was on the police department, every 6 months we would get a piece of paper that said I wasn't given enough tickets. I told my sergeant, who told me, keep doing what you're doing. And what I was doing, I was taking lollipops. And if I pulled you over for a stop sign, for speeding, if you admitted to me that I'm sorry I was going a little too fast, or I'm sorry I didn't come to a full stop, I would give them a lollipop and send them on their way. These people would be so much easier to talk to when anything was going on in that neighborhood. They would stop and tell me if things were going wrong. People love to have decent people. And here in Pahrump, we have 99.9% decent people. We're out here to enjoy life and
What Sheriff Worley is doing with these motor units is a disgrace. What she's got people doing is out pickpocketing us and our neighbors. Also, for the most petty of reasons, I'm sure you've heard the stories around town about what the motor units are citing people for. We are the 3rd poorest county in Nevada. Now, every single dollar that flows into the Nye County government should be the subject of a vote, and the people should agree how much they agree to be taxed, and that goes into the government. Sending people out to swarm over us and to cite us for every trivial little violation, black letters on white paper, and pickpocket us is the absolute opposite of being a servant of the people of the community. My framework for traffic citations: if you commit a violation of the vehicle code and it does not endanger somebody, deputy can pull you over, discuss the violation with you, and wish you a happy day. If you did place someone else in danger, pull you over, explain the violation, and in that circumstance, cite you, if he or she chooses. That's the proper framework for traffic enforcement. And there are other slightly more specific areas. If we have a problem area in town, or we've had too many accidents, too many pedestrians put at risk, then we have pinpoint traffic enforcement, but we don't pickpocket our neighbors.
As sheriff, I will not support traffic citations purely for the goal of raising revenue. To me, that's unethical. The goal of traffic safety is to make sure the public is safe on the public roadways. So if you're out there for blinkers, or you're going over the yellow line or the white line, that's not about safety. That's purely about profiting and revenue. So my goal is to focus purely on the severe traffic incidents that are occurring. DUIs, those cause deaths. Reckless driving, exhibition of speed, things that are a danger to the community. Now, I'm not saying you can't pull over. I want my officers to feel they also have discretion. That's important. But they're not out there solely to be citing. They're to be monitored and make sure the public's safe on the roadways. And when you have somebody on the roadway with the sole purpose of just collecting citations, now when you're already limited to resources, when you have actual serious crimes with victims occurring and you're over on the side of the road pulling over tickets, those resources are important, they're valuable, and we shouldn't be wasting time on those. Thank you.
Is there any rebuttals?
I have one. I'd just like to rebut Mr. DeMeo. You were the sheriff for 12 years and 16 years on the department. I would hope you have been there more than 10 times, but you have not been there 10 times in this campaign cycle. Because I've been there and they don't say you show up. Really? Yes, really.
Okay.
That's one, but I don't want to get in this because Tony,
we can have you rebut that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. He's keeping track of me. Well, you follow me around, David? I guess not. It's useless. I've been to the areas you haven't even been. Thank you so much.
I actually did work up in Tonopah for like a couple of months, so I was there. I did talk to people. They are feeling that they. I can't tell you how long, but how many times I've actually been there. I was working up at Silver Peak, but they are feeling neglected. They are feeling abandoned. Although they do have a lot of state troopers out there, and I do think that a lot of those state troopers already have the tickets pre-written. So, thank you.
David Hebert has 15 seconds to rebut what Tony DeMeo said. You're good? Anybody else have a rebuttal? We're going to go to the next question, which will go to Ray Malinsky. Sorry. You guys are working together really good, though. It's a good team. All right, the next question. The Nye County Sheriff's Office has recently partnered with Live PD. Would you continue to work with this or any other reality TV show, and why?
You know, this is not some kind of publicity deal that we have to put it on TV saying, hey, look, this is what's going on. I know the badges love it because it makes them famous. They go on there. Supposedly it's instant, but I've told that the Sheriff's Department does review this stuff before it's showed on there. I will not cooperate with any of these titillating shows that they want to show how people are being abused, because out here that's what it amounts to. They put it on TV, they stop somebody, they make it into a big crime or whatever, and some people's lives are ruined by this, and it should not continue. Why and who gave permission for the Sheriff's Department to say, okay, we're going to let citizens who are driving along the road or whatever, we're going to show it to the whole country that they're being abused, that they're doing something wrong or whatever. Don't ruin their lives because of something like that. No, no more of this. Not with the flag man. Like I say, homie, don't play that.
Well, really, it does come down to whether or not the cops want to volunteer for it or not. You know, I mean, it is what it is. We have body cameras. We have all that stuff anyways. It's all public knowledge. If they want to volunteer for it, that's completely up to them. But if I get sued for it, somebody's getting a beat down. Like I said, they have to be monitored, educated, and motivated, and they have to realize that they are being watched, and they are setting an example, and they are being the leadership for everybody else. But I'm not going to tell them that they can't do it. I'm just going to say, just make sure that you do good leadership. The whole point of doing the live PD is so that we can show that we are good people. We're not trying to do all that stuff that makes us look bad. It's one way that we can reach out to everybody. Like I said, I mean, I've been watching a couple of them, and probably they do need some retraining on how to treat people. But again, I just think it should be up to a volunteer basis. So.
You know, we worked with cops. Cops, we signed a contract which gets passed to the commissioners and the DA, making sure they're okay with it. We get to review the data, making sure that they're not showing juveniles or anybody inappropriate, so on and so forth. Live PD, I think what you're seeing now, all you're seeing is lieutenants running around taking calls for service, which basically means that the deputies are untrained, which basically telling me that they're afraid to show what the deputies are really doing out there. And the other thing, too, is the contract hasn't been passed through the Board of County Commissioners or the DA's office. So right now, the sheriff is putting the Nye County Sheriff's Office at risk with Pool Pack, because Pool Pack doesn't approve the contract. Anything that happens, any kind of lawsuits are going to fall directly on the county itself, because Pool Pack will not support or provide a defense for that. So that's the problem with it. And you know, with all the problems we have in Nye County Sheriff's Office, the turnover rate, no deputies in schools, the rules being abandoned, and the residential deputies are gone, the budget issues, and so on and so forth. The last thing I want to do is get involved in some kind of a TV show that basically makes them revenue, and we get nothing out of it.
Well, in my opinion, I think that it should be something that doesn't happen here. Our people here don't need to be exposed on TV. I don't know if any of you have seen the show. It makes them look bad. I mean, if they're going to make mistakes, they're going to make mistakes. But to do this, and from what the information I got, they don't get paid anything for this. So it's not beneficial. I think the body cameras will show what's going on, if there's any problem with the way they make the arrest, or what they do is not something that has to be shown on TV and make people look bad when they're not, which they have to have some excitement in there, which doesn't have to happen. So I think body cams work. We don't need TV.
Not the way it's being done now. The way it's being done now is the sheriff handpicks the people that the crews can ride with. And I've stood there and I've watched the deputy interact with somebody on the street with the camera crew. I know the deputy personally, and I know how he normally acts. He wasn't acting the way he normally acts because the cameras were on. I've said that there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made, a lot of changes with Nye County Sheriff's Department. Perhaps I would be willing to have a crew like that come back when the deputies are performing to such a level that I can say to the producer, pick a unit, any unit, because they're all sterling. And lastly, the requirement for my approval would be that the production company has the permission of every single person involved in that encounter before they air the show. Thank you.
I do not support live PD. The reason being because of the camera effect. And no, I'm not talking about adding 10 pounds. talking about the mental effect that it has when you're on the camera. It could make you nervous. It could make you behave in a certain way that's you're thinking makes look good, or you're trying to handle a situation that you wouldn't have handled it that way being on camera. And we don't need to open ourselves up to any more lawsuits or anything like that. So it's not worth the risk. We get nothing out of it. Thank you.
A television show is a double-edged sword. Right now, it works for nothing for the county. They don't make any money off of it. It is, when they asked if they were insured, they said A&E is going to take care of us. And I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. Bottom line is, there is money to be made from that. The other thing they gave up was control, so they go back to the same people doing the same things. It would have to be a group effort, meaning that the people of the county would have to agree to do it, and the person or the crew was going to be able to share X amount of money with the community, and we all agreed that that's what was best for it. But that being said, now that I've seen what I've seen that's on TV, I kind of changed my mind. I don't think it's worth it. Thank you.
Would anyone like a rebuttal? 30 seconds, Tony.
Just a point. At any time that the local press wanted to ride with a deputy, we allowed that to happen. So anybody wants to see what's going on in the Nye County Sheriff's Office when I was sheriff, the reporter or the press can ride with us. We don't need national TV to tell us what's going on in our sheriff's office. The press can do an excellent job showing that to the citizens of Nye County, better than some national TV station that's out there putting Nye County into a litigious situation.
Any other rebuttals? Everybody's good? Our next question will begin with Gerald Butler. What do you believe to be the most pressing public safety issue facing Nye County today, and how do you plan to deal with that?
Well, right now, actually, from my research, that we were up to about 4,000 cases this year. About 1,500 of them are actually child abuse and child molestations and sexual assaults. One of the things is that I'd like to actually work with the schools a lot better to be able to identify that stuff. One of the issues is that the schools aren't reporting it. They're trying to actually fix it in-house, and I don't think that's good. I mean, we need to know about that because we need to know why that's going on and how to stop it and how to address it. One of the other issues that's going on is that we have a lot of, this is a real hot button, but we have a lot of fake rape cases where they're actually admitting that it's fake, and we can't prosecute because people are afraid if they do prosecute, it won't come out. So that's something I still have to work on, but it is one of the issues that we are having.
You have 30 seconds left if you'd like to continue.
I'm sorry?
We'll have Tony go next and move down to the left like we've been doing. Tony next. And then we'll move to the left. Tony next. Tony.
Amendment, Jackson.
Don't worry about it. We'll get through this. One of the most pressing issues is the crime rate. The lack of deputies out in the street, the lack of school deputies in the schools, the lack of rural resident deputies in rural areas. I can go on and on and on. The 2015, the last UCR's, Uniform Crime Reports, from 2015 to 2016 shows that there's a 42% increase in crime. What's really amazing is that the clearance rate, that means the crimes that are solved, the clearance rate is 14.76%, almost 15%, less 15%, the lowest it has ever been in the recording of uniform crime reports in the state of Nevada. 42% increase in crime and 14% clearance rate. That shows that Sheriff's Office is severely putting the county and the citizens in danger. Let me tell you something. By courts, the courts can say, okay, we can seal your records. You're no longer an ex-felon. We can do your pardons. A victim will always be a victim. And it's our job as law enforcement, public safety personnel, is make sure that does not occur. Working hand in hand with the citizens who are a very important asset for us, and us working with the citizen. We talk about community policing. You know what community policing is? Is us. There's no his or her or this or them. It's not lion tamers and lions. It's us, the citizens, in conjunction with the citizens, because they empower us to do our job, and that's what we should be doing. The sheriff's office is failing that because they don't care or seem to care about that. Thank you.
I think that the children in this community need to have everyone in this community looking out for them. I would like to have the schools to have, as I had said earlier, the meeting with the schools. Yeah. When I get into the school children, it's something that just tears my heart out. I can't understand why it happens. I don't think we'll ever know why it happens. But we need to take care of these kids and hope that they're going to grow up being happy, being safe, and being smart. And I think a get-together with the kids at the schools by some of our better deputies can get them to start looking at deputies in a different manner and helping them help those children by starting a program.
I have two areas of concern. First of all, I said that we need to make a lot of changes in the Sheriff's Department and how it does business. I asked about certain deputies, some of them, for instance, assigned to special details, and I asked the other deputies, I said, what does Joe do all day? Well, I don't know, but every time I see him, he's just hanging out at the station. How does that help us as a community? There's far too much laziness, let me be blunt, far too much laziness from the people who are collecting our tax dollars. Secondly, drugs, huge problem in this county. I hope to work with other agencies involved in treatment, and let me explain why. I'm soon to be 59 years old. When I was in high school, anybody in high school could get any drug they wanted in 10 minutes. In the interceding 40 years, we've spent trillions of dollars. We've put millions of people in jail. And today, any high school kid can get any drug he wants in 10 minutes. Nothing has changed through strictly enforcement. So, is enforcement necessary? Yes, absolutely. But we need to have a far greater focus on treatment, and I hope to work with the agencies that can provide that treatment to our young people and our adults who have drug issues here in Nye County. Thank you.
So I'm going to go with recidivism. Recidivism is a problem, but it's not going to be solved by simply arresting. That literally is counterproductive to reducing recidivism rate if you're going to arrest the same person over and over again. It's a multifaceted problem. It's not just something that can be solved by the sheriff's office. There's a problem with poverty levels. There's a problem with drug usage. There's all these problems that exist that you need to be able to work together, and that's what I'm good at. I work with those agencies. I work with the courts. We need court programs other than just the drug court program that we have. We have a lot of veterans here. Why don't we have a veterans court program? Things like that. Within the jail, you put somebody in a jail for a drug charge or anything like that, and then you release them back to the street after they're done. What changed in their life? Nothing. So what are the odds of you probably arresting that person for the same exact crime again? Probably pretty high. So it's important to not just have programs available, but in the jails, you're having treatment in the jails while the people are in custody. You're doing assessments to determine those criminogenic risks that each individual has. So you can determine this individual is a high risk to reoffending. We don't want to put that with somebody who's a low risk of reoffending in the same unit. Because as we've seen and studies have shown, that will increase recidivism. So thank you very much.
To get to the question is what's wrong with how would we do things different in the Sheriff's Department. One of the things that I've learned is they'll write tickets till fingers fall off, but the biggest thing is they won't investigate anything. I had a young lady tell me that she had a water heater going out. She bought a water heater. 2 days later, it grew legs. It was in her neighbor's garage. So she called the sheriff's. Here's my ticket. Here's my description, the serial number, everything. And his answer to that question was, that's a civil matter. We have to get people who want to work, want to investigate crimes to get to the bottom of it, because otherwise we're just blowing things off and you get back to the people that are the people. What about us? Oh, it's a civil matter, don't worry about it. What that translates to in cop language is, I got something better to do. So we have to take control from the top, bring it down, and make sure they do their jobs. Do it well, because if you're putting those people in jail that need to be there because they actually did a crime, it works a little bit better. Thank you.
All the way down to Ray, please. He's going to be the last one to answer this question.
Please repeat the question.
What do you believe is the most pressing public safety issue facing Nye County today, and how do you plan to deal with it?
The badges are out of control. People are terrified. Lives are changed. Lives are ruined, not only by the badges, but by a court system that is not up to par. I sit in these courts for the last 16 years on a daily basis, and I have my opinions about it. And it all starts with the Sheriff's Department, because people are overcharged. And then they offer them a plea bargain, and people are terrified because now they've got to face 3 charges. They may be guilty of none of them, so they accept it. They have to pay the fine. Sometimes it goes on the record. If it's if it's a misdemeanor, it will go on some kind of record. They have what they call suspended sentences in the court. This is the justice system out here. Or if you plead guilty or found guilty, they hang 6 months, 90 days over your head and tell you have to do everything in a certain amount of time, a drop dead date. If you don't do it, you go to slammer. People go to slammer for not paying a fine of $115. People go to slammer for not paying a fine of $390. Sometimes they don't have the money. They plead for another month. It's ignored. Do away with such suspended sentences. Let them do community service or whatever as far as the fines go. And as far as the Sheriff's Department, quit harassing the people. It's done on a daily basis, and we cannot tolerate that. I can't tolerate it. I don't want to be looking in my rearview mirror all the time to see if there's a gumball behind me. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Do we have any rebuttals? No? This is going to be the last prepared question, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break to allow everyone to just take a deep breath, and then we'll be moving into audience questions.
We're going to begin with Tony DeMeo. What would you do to keep the Sheriff's Office budget in balance? What is your take on the current budgetary status of the office?
Right now, unbelievable, the Sheriff's Office budget spending 91% of this budget on salaries and benefits. 91%. As Sheriff of Nye County, we average 85%. Even I thought that was high. But the county commissioners make the work out these contracts, and when we had the DA, they would go up there and say, "We have money for this," and then they give me the end result that we don't have money for these obligations that we made with the unions. I was at a workshop. The county commissioners, believe it or not, left the workshop with over $200,000 in the red, and they thought, "Let's call it a day." When I went in front of the AG's office, I wish, and I'll share this with the press, this 3-hour interview. It is scary how Nye County budgets everything. But one of the major things that we have to do is watch out for our budget, making sure the budget actually is actually used properly. One of the biggest things I see in the Nye County Sheriff's Office at this table, looking at their table of organization, is they have managerial bloat. They are so top heavy. When I took office as sheriff, I eliminated a lot of that, made it a flatline management. This thing is all over the table. If you look at it, and it's in the BOCC backup. Look at it, make your head bleed. The sheriff's office is improperly managed because they're spending too much money on taking favors from the union that supported the current sheriff and making sure they all made high supervisory ranks. and the other citizens and deputies are being shortchanged by it.
Well, I'm going to have to pass on that question because I'm not able to get that information from anyone in the sheriff's department, so I can't really comment on it.
I always find budget questions a little bit amusing because coming from the private sector, this question never comes up. Because you have the money that you have and you work efficiently and you use that money for the correct outcome. However, suddenly when it's public money, when it's your money, when it's our money, suddenly how are you going to deal with the budget? The same way you deal with the budget in the private sector. It's a math equation. It's prioritizing what's important. Now, with government, there are things that are a little bit different than the private sector, such as there are things that are mandatory under state law, and those things have to be fulfilled first. Secondly, then you have discretionary things your community would like. Then when you're done with all that, you can look at perhaps the pet projects of that particular agency and what you might like to do. But in the end, it's very simple. It's math and it's priorities. And as somebody who comes out of a life of the private sector, I understand how to efficiently use every single dollar instead of going back to the commissioners and saying, hey guys, could you go out to all of them and ask them for more money? That won't be what you get from me. Thank you.
As sheriff, I'm going to look for actual long-standing revenue. So instead of using short-term, such as through grants, a grant, when you write it, depending on how you write it, is going to give you money, X amount of dollars for this use. Then once it's gone, it's done. So for instance, you get a grant to hire a new sheriff's deputy. Well, you got the money to hire them, but now once they reach that vested term, now you have to pay that retirement. That comes out of the county. So writing a lot of grants is great, but eventually you're going to run out of that money. So you need to find avenues to get recurring revenue. So there's, for instance, if we're actually reducing the recidivism rate, then we're not going to have our jails full, so we're going to have space. I know for a fact that over in Las Vegas, they're always packed to the maximum at their facilities, and they're reaching out to all the way up to Lincoln County up in Pioche, 2.5 hours away from there. They're transporting their people in their jails to store them basically up in Pioche. Well, what's wrong with right over the hill over here, about an hour away? They save money, we make money, but that's a recurring thing, recurring basis, and that's what's important to keep the budget good. Thank you.
Budget's the Achilles heel to everything. Bottom line, though, is you have your budget made out before time, and you have to communicate with the commissioners. They have a lot on their table as well, and if they don't know what you're driving for and what you need, they can't accommodate you. I think the other thing too, like I said, it's not against the law for the sheriffs to make money. We can do the forensics things, and we can do all that stuff and actually make us look well. It's my understanding that they were going to put an INS contract up in Tonopah, but I understand that just fell through, and someone would have to correct me if that's wrong. But reoccurring funds that we can do is good, but we also have to know what we need in advance, and we have to communicate with the commissioners so they don't get blindsided. Oh, by the way, we need another extra $1 million. They should know it up front. Thank you.
I had to refresh my memory to see what I had to say about the budget, because I was in a magazine last year, The Pahrump Life. I will accept $1 a year in salary. The rest of the money is going to stay in the sheriff's department for things that are necessary. I will keep their $1 and use that $1. People ask me, how can you live on $1 a year, Flagman? I say, it's all in the budgeting. You can't spend it on the first day. You got to kind of spread it out over the entire year. So that's my first plan. Second, I talk to retired cops from all over the country that stop and say, how come there's no opportunity, or they don't know of any opportunity to start working for the department at a very small amount of money? And I think that has to be looked into, because the salaries are what's bankrupting the whole department. I think the budget was $13 million. Is that correct, Tony? About $13 million?
Right now?
Yeah.
Sheriff's Office budget is $12.8 million.
12.8. See, I'm off again. Tony's right on the ball here. Anyway, so different things have to be done, but the salary is what is really draining everybody, and so that has to be looked into. That's my point of view, and there you go. To Gerald.
All right, I'm looking at this as a businessman. I used to sell Kirby's, and Kirby's are not cheap. I mean, every time, like, I told them the price of the Kirby, like, maybe I always sold them for about $1,700, and they're like, $1,700 for a vacuum? No, sir, it's a home care cleaning system. The idea is that whatever we do, we have to make it worth it. Whatever, like, when the budget that we have, the money that we're getting from the commission, we have to make whatever we do worth it. And they have to be like, oh, well, this is what I bought. Good, that's what I bought. When I was selling the Kirby's, they thought it was a vacuum. They didn't realize it was a home care cleaning system. So I actually had to take that Kirby, and I had to clean their whole house with it. Everything that the Kirby would clean, I would clean it. I made them learn how easy it was and how much money they saved. And they actually saw what they were buying. With the police department, the idea is to make everybody happy. If we're not making anybody happy, nobody's going to want to pay us. If we do a good job, we can get more money. We can bring more business in. We can bring more revenues in. We just have to have a new personality on how we spend our money. Also, they did say the salaries. Well, right now everybody's working over 12-hour shifts. If we hire more people, not everybody's going to have to work more 12-hour shifts, and we don't have to pay the overtime. It actually balances out. We get a better result as long as the leadership is there. So when we look at budget, when we look at buying, when we look at spending, we have to look at what we're actually buying, spending, and using, not just saying, oh, well, I don't want to spend the money. Well, what do you get?
Are there any rebuttals? Go ahead, Tony, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that the Nye County Sheriff's Office Southern Detention was built actually for renting space out to federal inmates. What happened was that the county commissioners and the county manager at the time did not fulfill the obligations for the consultant. Even though we sent all the data over, that deal fell through. Right now, in order for us to get that facility, both facilities would have to be open. We will wind up being in a deficit if we wind up bringing people in from outside like Clark County, being a deficit of about $300,000 a year. So we wouldn't be making money.
Any other rebuttals? All right, we're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break so everybody can just relax for a second. Okay, so we're going to begin with our audience questions. I have two here that are somewhat similar, so I'm going to combine them into one. The first is, do you think $14 per hour starting pay for deputies is sufficient? And why are staff members that work in the office making over $100,000 a year? Would you fix that waste and abuse of taxpayer money?
That's your question.
Joe, you're first.
Well, there are some things in this campaign where I wasn't able to get the information. I don't know if $14 an hour is even close to decent.
Get the microphone a little closer to your mouth, Joe, please, so everyone can hear you.
$14 an hour is a little cheap for a deputy who goes out and risks their life every day. You never know what's going to happen, but that is kind of ridiculous amount of money. I wouldn't take the job. If, as far as you said someone making $100,000 a year, I don't know what kind of job that was. I couldn't hear you.
It was for deputies, NCSO deputies making $100,000 a year in salary.
I'm seriously having problems with my ears. Who makes $100,000 a year?
It was referring to deputies.
$100,000 a year as a deputy?
These questions from the audience may or may not be factual.
Okay, I'm not privy to what they make, or...
Hopefully they are. Hopefully they have some background on it.
You know what it is?
They're right here. What do you think about?
Let's try down here. Maybe you might know.
That's what it says. Okay. Dave, same question. And then we move to the left.
Joe may have said the magic words. Would you take that job? I would. When you talk about $14 an hour, really the equation is what kind of candidates do you want? Because excellent candidates are not going to sign up for $14 an hour. That's just the truth of it. So the county commissioners have a choice to make. They can arrange the pay and the contract with the deputies union to step their game up, and we'll get better qualified candidates. We will get better peace officers on the street serving you. As to the officers making over $100,000 a year, that's just a complete lack of fiscal accountability by our current sheriff. Last year, the third highest paid county employee was then Sergeant Dave Barukowitz of the Nye County Sheriff's Department. Third highest paid employee in the county. That is absurd, and that goes directly back to lack of accountability by the current sheriff. So again, what do we as a community want? We express that through our commissioners. The commissioners then take what we have to say and they sit down with the police union and then they hammer out an agreement. If we don't speak up and let them know, no. $14 an hour is not what we want. We want men and women who are better than $14 an hour. If we don't speak up, we're just going to allow the commissioners to give us whatever they give us, and we see where that's gotten us. Thank you.
In addition to quality of the people who are candidates for becoming a sheriff's deputy, you also have to consider the turnover rate. A lot of times what you'll have someone apply, become a part of the sheriff's office, go to the academy, get their post certificate, and then once they got their pro certificate, they're out of here going to a lateral to another agency that pays better and is just an all-around better agency. So what you have to do is really consider is the lower wage worth it when you're paying that person when you hire them, but then you're also going to have to pay them once they leave because you're going to have to hire someone else again to pay to replace them. Thank you.
The $14 an hour is basically unacceptable. Now, it is my understanding that the lieutenants, since they were just voted by the commissioners to get their union back, they're wanting to raise, and it's somewhere up and around the $50 an hour site. And those are the only guys you see working on the TV show, and after a certain amount of time, correct me if I'm wrong, but they get overtime. So that's why those people make that amount of money, because it's so unstructured, it is so not managed. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure out all these guys sitting around that are making $50 an hour and the $14 an hour are out doing the work, they're not going to stay. We have to be more thoughtful in how we deal out our monies and give it to the right people. Thank you.
What Champion said. Thank you.
Okay, so there is a big, I was about to explode waiting for this. So I actually called Silver State Police Academy for the post cert, and it actually costs about $7,000 for 6 months for me to train. I would not be paid to go, I'd have to pay to be trained there. The $14 an hour, which is going to be jumped up to $17 an hour, is only for training. They're actually being paid to train. Then once they become a deputy, full-fledged cert, they'll get the $17 an hour while they're on there for their first year under the probation. But yeah, those are the things that you don't really understand. I mean, like, it's either pay to go to the training or get paid to go to the training. So, as for the $100,000 a year, first of all, I want that guy to negotiate my pay, but there's an NRS that says that the sheriff can't actually negotiate pay. So I don't believe in, I mean, as far as I understand that the NRSs don't fall within the, most of them don't fall within the Constitution, but the sheriff is not allowed to negotiate pay with anybody.
$127,000 a year. I was going to bring that one up. And that's being paid more than a sheriff, being paid more than a lot of people in Nye County, as David Champion pointed out. The sheriff is mismanaging her budget and personnel horrendously. That's plain. But the point was, why $14? It's not the commissioners to blame for that $14 an hour pay. It's the union that did that. They came to me 3 times and said, we got this new rank, recruit deputy. I said, no, because they're going to go out in the street, and I'm not paying people going out in the street less than what everybody else is getting paid in Nye County Sheriff's. They're putting their jobs on the line, they're putting their lives on the line for less. Are you crazy? The union did that because they want to use money for their self, the employed. That's why they did it. It's not the commissioner's fault. The sheriff had to support that, so it's Sharon's fault for doing that as well. And when I started the Nye County Sheriff's Office in 1999, I was making more than $14 an hour then. The union under the previous leadership was horrible for the deputies that worked for them. And the new leadership in the union, I understand, is doing a better job representing those members. But that was not the commissioner's fault. They're getting a bad rap in this. It was the fault of the union who put that forward 3 times to me, David Brukewitz twice, Travis Huggins once, and I denied it. There you go.
Does anybody have a rebuttal?
I just want to comment on the issue of where the culpability lies, whether it's the union or the commissioners. The union and the commissioners negotiate together. The sheriff does not sign the contract with the deputies' union. The commissioners do. So the sheriff may, if he's invited by the commissioners, comment. He may share his view with them. But ultimately, if the commissioners choose to disregard or not even involve the sheriff, they can go ahead and execute the contract with the deputies' union.
Is there any more rebuttals?
When that came through, the sheriff said nothing. And she had a right to go in front of BOCC and argue against that. She didn't. So yeah, the sheriff's to blame. Lay right in the sheriff's feet where it belongs.
Any other rebuttals? No? All right, the next question will be going to Dave Champion. Yes. Okay, Robin, stop being so bossy. Did you hear her? She's razzing me. All right. The undersheriff is an important, well, I'm going to start that again. The undersheriff is as important as the sheriff. Who will be your undersheriff?
I have many people under consideration. I haven't made a final decision, and let me explain why I haven't. When we vote for the President of the United States, it's very important for us to know who the Vice President of the United States is going to be. In case something happens to the President, the Vice President assumes the presidency. That is not at all how it works here in Nye County with the sheriff. When I'm sheriff, if I drop dead, the undersheriff is only a temporary acting sheriff. The commissioners can do one of 2 things. They can either call a special election, which they will almost certainly not do because of the cost involved, or they can get 3 of the 5 commissioners to appoint who the next sheriff is going to be to fulfill my term. So, although it's become sort of a tradition to talk about who your undersheriff is, who your running mate is, I haven't decided yet. There's a number of people I'm looking at who have very particular skills that I think would be very valuable to the agency. As a matter of fact, one of them is sitting in this room right now. But until I make the final decision, I won't be able to share that with you. Thank you.
I too have not selected an undersheriff. To me, it's a very important decision to make. I need to pick someone who is not only educated and has experience in the field, but also who shares my same vision of where I want to take and lead the sheriff's office to. So I have not selected that person, but I too have numerous people that are in my consideration right now. Thank you.
Hopefully that'll be the patented answer, because if they already know, we may have a problem. There's a lot of people that are qualified. They need to be vetted. Where are you going with your department? And like everyone said here, whoever they feel is the best, that's who they're going to pick.
I have not decided. I have a friend in Chicago who is just retired. He was chief homicide for a long time in the city of Chicago. Then he went for Cook County doing cold case investigations, solving murders from 25 years before. But I do not know if he would respond to my request if he were to come out here and set all this up here as far as that goes. But locally, I have not decided who I would use as undersheriff. Larry Tudor is my friend in Chicago, and I would ask him first. Thank you.
So I don't really have that much law enforcement experience, but I am being trained by law enforcement right now. And my mentor is extremely, I believe he's one of the best cops in the country. He's always challenging me. He's always, we speak every night. We were always talking about the law. He says, Jerry, you got to be the best, And there was one point in time where I didn't believe I could do it, but he started training me. He started teaching me. He says, Jerry, you can do it. You can be the sheriff. And he teaches me all about the law. He always questions it, how I'm thinking about the law, making sure that I'm treating people fairly, that I'm treating the law fairly. Unfortunately, I can't give you his name right now because it's for the safety of him and his family. I do apologize, but I will address him when the time is where I believe it to be safe for him. So, thank you.
Okay, let's explain what an undersheriff is. It's a confidant employee of the sheriff. That's it. It's not an important position. I did away with the undersheriff position when I was sheriff. We operated just fine. I'd rather have people out in the street and answering calls for service and dealing with the public. I mean, someone talked about an ombudsman. I don't need an ombudsman if I'm have an open door policy. If they have a problem with the sheriff's office, they come to me. The most important thing we have is making sure that they're properly supervised and having proper supervision out in the street and making sure that the sheriff's office is available to the citizens. But an undersheriff position, I eliminated the undersheriff position when I became sheriff of Knight County. I went to the Board of County Commissioners and had it done away with. This current sheriff has one, and it hasn't helped management at all, hasn't helped the citizens of Knight County, has it? It's made things worse, hasn't it? There you go.
First of all, before deciding who is going to be my undersheriff, I would like to be the sheriff. There are people sitting here at this counter that I respect and have confidence would be my undersheriff. But it all depends on who's going to be the sheriff. Thank you.
Is there any rebuttals?
Our next question, we're going to begin with Asa. As sheriff, would you continue to train your entry-level deputy sheriffs locally at NCSO's hometown or send them to Las Vegas / Metro's Clark County Academy?
I think it's important to keep our academy here locally. However, I believe in the fact that you shouldn't rely on one agency to be training all your deputies. Clark County Metro is a very large agency, and they have a really large wealth of information and knowledge that's can be given to a lot of different officers. I've taken a lot of trainings through Metro. That's just a common practice that a lot of the officers partake in, and it's a lot of voluntary. And I want to make sure that that changes. I know that there's a lot of refresher training that's given to the officers, but I feel like refresher, if you're just increasing the refresher, why are they not retaining the most basic information when you're out there on the street? You need to go beyond that. So that goes back to the communications. And I want to make sure that all our sheriff's deputies are crisis intervention trained. So that way when they're going out to a scene when someone's suicidal or something like that, that they're not ending up putting that person in jail. They know how to handle those people in those situations. Thank you.
I believe that who you are and who you know and who you meet is very important. Your connections will take you further than any degree. Once we get back to self-trained, you get one guy in there at a time, it becomes very incestuous. We need to get out there and train with other people to make our department better. Now, the people that train and are post-certified can train their specifics here, but I think it's best for us to get out there and train our people with other people so we don't have one point of view. Thank you.
I kind of agree with the last comment. I know nothing about the training program out here. I think it's abusive to the candidates. I don't like what they're doing as far as the pepper spray. I don't like what they're doing as far as the tasers. They say it doesn't affect them permanently. I heard that women sometimes don't show it immediately, but later in life it affects them. That's part of our training program here that I disagree with. I don't know what they're doing in Clark County. I don't think anybody should be submitted and forced into that in order to get validation and to get a badge. And that's how I feel about it. So I would have to look into it, because that would not, if there was training out here, that would be the first thing. No tasers of these candidates. And the other deputies laugh and they think it's great. If you see them on TV, Deanna O'Donnell could tell you when they film this, they love it. They love it when they're pepper sprayed. Oh my God, you know. No, there should be no enjoyment by some of the people on the job that they're torturing, and that's what it is, people that are looking for that job. That's my opinion.
I believe if you're going to enforce the law within a community, you have to be part of that community. You have to know the community. You have to know how to handle them. Each person is different. You can't handle the same person the same way. Everybody will be treated with respect, but you have to be part of the community. So I want to extend the training program here to make sure that quite a bit of it is community service with the people so that they're learning the people. Then I can do the 6 months procedure and that stuff, and then they'll be doing 1 year on the training as the being supervised at what training as it is. But just because the training should never stop. It should always be, they should always be learning. They should always be trying to do something better. That's why I plan to hire people that are better than me so that they will bring my standards up. So I keep learning. I have the drive to become better. Yeah, it's not impossible to say, hey, I can send them down to training in Clark County, but a lot of that has to be trained with the people. And and the training will never stop. It will be continuous. Thank you.
The question was, will I continue training the sheriff's deputies in the United County Sheriff's Office Academy? No. I'll tell you why. They have a no-fail academy. When we had the academy, it was a fail academy. We had people dropping out the first day. Now, you're going to make it through no matter what. And what the sheriff did and her training staff did, unbelievable. They took a 22-hour post-certified field training officer program and made it an uncertified 12-week program. So not only these deputies are going to go through there no matter what and then probably get answers to the test and get pushed through the academy, and we're going to be the ones suffering through the people that are untrained. But you know who's going to be suffering? Is the deputy going out there untrained. They're putting their life at risk. They're putting our lives at risk. That's the current state of the academy today. Anybody, when I become sheriff in that county, will be sent to the post committee. I sat as a commissioner on the post commission for 9 years. They'll go up north to Carson City, get trained by the post academy up there until we get our academy back in shape and making sure it's an academy and putting out a good product, not this push through stuff. I mean, God, what is this? What is the sheriff's office thinking? And not only that, I'm not going to put them in the current Nye County Sheriff's Academy, where the motto is treat everybody with respect until they deserve not to be treated with respect. That's the motto now, and that's a failure to the citizens of Nye County and to the current deputies that are out there doing a good job. Thank you so much.
As for going to the academy, at the time that I went, it was only 3.5 months. Now they're up to 6 months in some of the training centers. But I believe that the deputies here could go to Carson City because they have a training program that is supposed to be one of the best in the country. Keep the deputies close to us so we can send more there when needed and bring them back here well trained. Then they can start training here. I would like it to be Carson City or possibly Clark County, but they're pretty well booked up there all the time. But I'm sure we could find the right people to train all of our deputies.
Dave Hebert commented that it's important to make contacts as you train elsewhere over time, and he's absolutely right about that. However, the question was specifically about the new candidates to become Nye County deputies, and that we must keep here. The reason is, when you elect me sheriff, I'm accountable to you. I need to know exactly what's going on in that academy, and dramatic changes in what takes place in that academy are necessary. I'll give you an example. A young friend of mine that I've known since high school just several months ago dropped out of the academy. When I asked him why, he said, well, Dave, he said, it was such an us against them mentality. He said, we were taught that every domestic violence call, we're going to die. Every traffic stop, someone's going to go for your gun. Every time you respond to a call, the fight is on. He said, and I understood that in the training setting. He said, but then when I would talk to other deputies outside the training environment within the Nye County Sheriff's Department, he said they echoed the same message, us against them, us against them. And many of the people in this community have experienced that, and Ray has commented several times today. Changing that begins on the ground floor at our academy. That's where we make our deputies responsive to the needs of the community and no longer the abusive agents that they are. And I intend to make the changes necessary to create that. Thank you.
Do we have any rebuttals? Tony, go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I appreciate what David said, but let me tell you something. The Post Academy of Carson City is one of the finest in the country. They don't teach us against them attitude. They teach us with them attitude. They teach the citizens and the deputies and the sheriffs and the officers they train a part of the community. You know, and that's what the issue is. Right now we have an academy, because you're asking about right now. We have an academy. The head trainer is reported in your newspaper last year. Treat people with respect until they no longer deserve it. And we have a sheriff that says to academy graduates, we're animals and they're the lion tamers.
Time, Tony.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
David, because you were specifically pointed out, you get 30 seconds plus 15 seconds for being pointed out, so you'll have 45 seconds to respond. David.
I certainly respect...
Oh, it must have been Dave Champion. I'm sorry. You guys are both named Dave.
Okay. I certainly respect Tony's point of view. However, the story that I shared with you is from somebody who's been there in NCSO, in the academy, just a handful of months ago. We have to deal with the situation we have, not a theoretical argument about how it should be. Thank you.
30 seconds.
Too many Daves on the stand here. My thing is this, is that we have to train with other people. I was at the, the cook-off the other day, and Sheriff Worley came to me, and she told me how exciting it was to have her academy so she could get in people's faces and scream at them and yell at them. Well, that is treating them like the animals that she says that they are. I found that a little bit disrespectful from people coming from law enforcement, from a guard. So that's how I saw it.
Any other rebuttals? All right, we'll move on to the next question, which will start with Mr. Hebert.
All right. What is your position of confiscation of arms before conviction?
There should not be confiscation of arms except for limited things. If they're trying to kill their spouse, as you know, things happen in hot times. There may be a limited time, but they should be returned to when everything is cooled down and monitored because they're under some sort of case. But you don't take their things from them that are under the Second Amendment until they're proven. And so if I mean, I'm down with doing it for a little bit, a day or two, but once everything cools down, those people should be able to get their stuff back.
All the way down to Ray, please.
Once they take the guns, it takes forever to get back. Innocent or guilty, those guns stay in evidence. I've talked to people all the time who have guns taken from them for whatever reason. The cop is nervous or whatever. And they try to get their gun back. They have to go through a whole process. All the charges have to be dropped against them. They have to get a letter from the district attorney to walk it over to the sheriff's department to go into evidence to get the gun if they go through the whole procedure. And sometimes it's not done then either. Another thing is, there always should give a receipt when guns are taken. There should be some record. Now, a friend of mine, Paul Miller, had guns taken out of his house when he was in a hospital under surgery, in a VA hospital, and there were no receipts given. He had to fight for his guns back. He did nothing wrong, but he was being operated on. His guns were confiscated. His sister turned the guns over. She didn't like guns or whatever, and it was hell for him to get those guns back. The Second Amendment is utmost in my mind. We have to honor the Second Amendment, and we just do not take guns and play games with it and leave the people defenseless. Thank you.
Similar questions I've answered a lot, and then similar answers come up like that. If they haven't done anything wrong, we can't punish them. We can't take their stuff. And they have a right to die defending their rights. We do not have a right to take their life, to take their rights. That's a very important thing. Everybody's sitting there thinking, well, they should do this, they should do that. Well, what did he actually do wrong? What did they do wrong? Why should we take it? What crime did he commit? Is he found guilty? No. Why, even if they did commit a crime, why can't they earn their right to have their rights back? These are a lot of things that I'm thinking about. I don't want to sit there and infringe on anybody's rights. I don't want to sit there and have to fight over anybody with this kind of stuff. And really, I'm not interested in taking anybody's life to take their gun. If they're willing to say, hey, if you can put it aside, I'll put mine aside. We can talk like normal people. Yeah, but I'm not looking to infringe upon anybody's Second Amendment rights. And when that does happen, I will arrest somebody. And Second Amendment doesn't just mean about firearms. It means the right to use force. Firearms is only one type of arms. A lot of people don't really understand that, but the Second Amendment is very important to me. The First Amendment is important as well, but the First Amendment is the First Amendment because you have the right to give a warning. Second Amendment is the right to enforce that warning. Thank you.
I'm against illegal confiscation of guns. I was A-rated by the NRA 2002, 2006, 2010. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, really. The problem is sometimes we have to take guns because they're either using a crime or a threat to a domestic battery. If they're using a commission crime, domestic battery, so on and so forth, guns have to be taken. The problem is that once the case is heard and say there's no conviction or the guns can be returned to the responsible person or to the, like you say, if the gun's taken during a robbery and a property is taken, one being a gun, we have to get the DA to release anything that's in evidence. The law requires the DA to release evidence, and that's the job of the DA. We have to abide by that. But there are times when in the sheriff's office that we've had people surrender guns temporarily because they because they have some issues. They want to make sure the guns are out of the house, and we've done that. And once those issues are taken care of, we voluntarily and welcome and give them back their guns. Every weapon that we take is supposed to be it has to have the receipt. But but we're not doing illegal confiscations. But we have to follow law when a gun is confiscated and is placed in evidence because a crime is committed. By law, the DA has to give us the release in order for us to release the gun to the proper individual. So, but I'm supportive of the Second Amendment and the First, and all of them are very important, by the way.
I think that if the subject is either mentally incompetent or is an ex-felon or has been convicted of spousal abuse, the weapon should be taken from them. And I believe that once they're cleared of that, whatever crime they're charged with, they can get the weapon back. I know it's hard going to the DA and going through all that, but it's better than having something happen that would cause harm to anybody else. It's all something that has to be looked into. It's hard to just. But I believe in the Second Amendment, and put it away until you can prove that he's capable of taking care of it.
It would be hard to find a candidate that is more pro-right to keep and bear arms than am I. I've been a firearms and tactics instructor the most of my adult life. When the NRA sent me the candidates questionnaire, I questioned whether to fill it out because I thought it was odd to be rated by an organization that is less pro-right to keep and bear arms than am I. That said, I think the question is really targeting what we've been seeing in this country, which is the mass shootings. So I would ask you this question. How many of you want a dangerous, mentally ill person with a firearm around your children or grandchildren? Anyone? Right, that's the problem. 40, 50, 60 years ago, teenagers took firearms to school, and nobody died. Today, we have teenagers taking guns to school and shooting their schoolmates and their teachers and staff members. This is a problem we have to sort out. Clearly, nobody's hand went up when I asked whether you want a mentally ill, dangerous person with a firearm around your children. The question is, where is that line? And you know who gets to make that line? All of you, when you talk to your legislators and we establish the law that prevents that here in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Asa will be our final person to answer, and then we'll open rebuttals.
So I too, of course, am against the legal confiscation of weapons. So who is a person who is not legally allowed to carry a weapon? That would be a prohibited person. But the key thing with a prohibited person is they've been found guilty of something. They've been found guilty of a domestic violence. They've been found guilty of a felony, or they've been civilly committed on a legal 2000. So that's the important part. That those people have been found guilty already. They have committed a crime. So prior to that, any illegal confiscation, of course, I'm against it. That we're the highest law of the land in the county. Of course, we're going to uphold the laws. And as far as making sure the firearms are returned, firearm, cell phone, any item that's been confiscated by the sheriff's office, there should be a record of that, and there should be an easy process to obtain it in a thorough process, and it should be easily done if we do it right each time. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and open up for rebuttals. Would anybody like to offer a 30-second rebuttal? It looks like Gerald would.
Part of the, they just brought out a very big point that back in the 1950s, people didn't shoot people up. People didn't have that many problems. It's because they actually had their rights, they knew their rights, and people respected their rights. That's one of the things that we need to go back to now. Back in the 50s, you were allowed to actually be able to set a boundary for yourself, and you were allowed to be a man or a woman or a gentleman or whatever you were. Now we have to do what we're told. People are confiscating your rights. People are writing up frivolous laws that don't fall within the Constitution, and they're enforcing it, and that's what's been happening. That's how we can actually get away from gun issues, if we just give the power back to the people.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals?
Me, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And I agree with Dave's champion. The fact of the matter is that we have people that should not have weapons that have mental issues that are not being reported. Years ago, we actually had places for them to go. Hospitals would accept those with psychiatric problems, and they would be treated. We don't have that anymore. That we don't have any way, especially in the state of Nevada, to actually deal with our mental health issues along with our drug issues. And that's one thing we should start working on. The legislature working on that, so we have more social services for the citizens that need it. Thank you.
There's only one rebuttal per person. But David, you haven't had one yet, so go ahead. We'll pass the microphone down to Mr. Hebert.
I agree with what they're saying, and I just want to point out that it is easier to get a FISA warrant to spy on your political adversaries than it is to go up against HIPAA. We need to make sure that those people who make that criteria have to be sought after, because otherwise we're going to get what we get. Thank you.
Dave Champion, go ahead. 30 seconds.
I just want to make clear what I said when I mentioned that we collectively as a community will make the decision on where that line is. That line must be compliant with the unalienable right to keep and bear arms. It is not subjective, so that people who hold views that are anti-gun can simply use that to take the guns away from the healthy, law-abiding citizenry. That's a big no-go, and that will not happen under my watch.
All right. Next audience question, and we're going to begin with Ray, so please pass the microphone down to Ray. Keep in mind, these are questions from the audience. Some of the known deputies who have a history of abusing citizens and their rights through the years have only been promoted, not disciplined. What will you do about this?
I talked to most of these deputies. Not only were they let go, they got their jobs reestablished, and they're promoted, and they're running the department. There are some cases where the higher-ups in the department, at least one that I'm aware of, should have been run off of the force a long time ago, but it's not happening. So, as sheriff, I will take whatever action it takes to change all that. I know under Tony that he had let some of these people go, and then as soon as Sheriff Worley was elected, they were just brought back. And all I know from these people, that these badges, they're personable with me. They talk nice to me, but I don't know how they're outside of my conversation. I know Judge Jasperson one time would not grant a warrant to one of these cops that was reinstated because he said he's a Brady cop, he perjured himself under oath, and now he's on the department asking me for a warrant. I will not, because he's not telling the truth. So this has got to be changed. We have to clean up the department. Thank you.
As an administrator, I do realize that that is a big issue, but I am only one person that has to make that decision. But I also did mention earlier that I will have a citizens review board, and I will have a peace officers commission. I will allow them to actually take and investigate and do the reports, and then come up with their solutions on how we can do it, what the type of punishments would be, and then I'll implement it. I don't believe in a dictatorship. I don't believe in micromanaging. I think that everything should be fair and everybody should have a say.
Thank you, Ray. You pointed out one of the problems. We have a sheriff that brings people back that don't deserve to be cops. I terminate them, they come back. Why? A political union patronage? Is that what this is all about? Are you more concerned about having a deputy to work for the Nye County Sheriff's Office that doesn't deserve to be there, so you don't make them union mad, but yet you defile the Sheriff's Office itself? let me just say one thing. I was there my first day as a reserve for Knight County Sheriff's. I was there when Sheriff Worley was trying to get this warrant signed, and I was appalled by the conduct that was going on in the Sheriff's Office. I actually put my papers in to quit that time. I was going to work for the Sheriff's Office that did that. The problem is this: if you if you keep a Brady cop, you own every Brady cop on that job. The sheriff fell into a trap, and that the union loved this one, because every time we fired a cop for dishonor, untruthfulness, the arbitrator held that firing, and the person never got their job back. They were gone, forever gone. When you bring somebody back that's a Brady cop, you own you'll never be able to get rid of them. And that's the stain that the sheriff has put on Knight County Sheriff's Office and law enforcement here as a whole, because she can't get rid of a Brady cop. My understanding, if Dave Champion's information is correct, that a cop, and I don't know his sort, but if it's correct, that they changed termination to a different charge.
I am not familiar with any of the problems that went on. I
Mr.
can't
Moffett?
really speak on it.
Please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with this, what they were just speaking of. I'm not aware of anything, so I can't really say anything on it.
It would be nice to be able to stand here in front of you and say, you know what, I know a list of bad cops on this agency, which I do, and so as soon as I'm sworn in, they're all down the road. It isn't going to happen, because the system doesn't work that way. I discussed the union agreement and that it is negotiated with the county. During the time when the county was struggling financially, it made all sorts of concessions to the union that it shouldn't have made. And those concessions will make it more challenging to remove the bad officers. All that means is that the sheriff has to be more focused on the problem and has to take more steps and be more idiosyncratic to reach the same conclusion in the long run. One of the things that when I'm sheriff I'll intend to do is come before you, just like we are today, and discuss with you the things I would like you to go to your commissioners with, so we can correct the problems that have now made it so difficult to get rid of problematic officers. Nevertheless, there are ways to do things, and there are ways to do things. And the deputies that are violating people's rights, that are abusing the public, that are committing perjury on the witness stand, that are committing false arrests, you have my word, they will be sent down the road. Thank you.
As sheriff, I'll set the expectation day one. You got to set the expectation that if wrongdoing occurs, then action will be taken. You'll go through the process. So a lot of people tell me, well, the union fights back. You can't fire anybody because of the union. No, like you said, you just got to work harder. You got to document. You got to show that this occurred. This was the action that took place to correct it. Because at the end of the day, my goal isn't to fire people. My goal as a leader is to bring people up to the standard that they need to be at. And if they choose to go on their own way against the vision and the way that we're going in the office, then corrective action will be taken. It could be in training. It could be you're suspended. But it could, if the correction action is taken and you don't follow through on your end, the deputy's end, then you're out of here. And the documentation has occurred. The I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and there's no union that's going to stop it. Thank you.
I think that's a common theme here. That's the first thing I've heard from everybody. It's the union, it's the union, it's the union. They are not from a higher power. You just have to beat them at their own game. And you have to be willing to do it, and this administration is not. Because the bottom line, as I see it, is a big rat's nest, and once you get one, they all run away. But you have to take the time to take some of the rats out, and that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Do we have any rebuttals? Okay, Tony, go ahead.
Oh, I fired deputies with the union. The union's not the problem. It was the DA that put a different matrix into the disciplinary process. Nevertheless, I fired them. They deserve to be fired. They're gone. The problem is that no matter what you do, if a new sheriff comes in that doesn't have the same integrity, they come back. I will tell you this, my record is a deputy deserves to be terminated, they're terminated, and they're gone. So when I come back as Nye County Sheriff, if they commit a disciplinary issue that deserves termination, they're going to be terminated, and the arbitration will not overturn my decision.
Any other rebuttals? No? All right, we'll move on to the final audience question.
We have quite a few audience questions still left, and we also had one question that was from us that we were not able to ask you. So I'm going to ask you an audience question that should go quickly, and we'll see how that goes. We'll begin with Gerald Butler. Have you filed your campaign financial disclosure? If so, when?
Yes, I disclosed the first time. I think it was like 2 months ago on the 22nd or 23rd. I keep trying to do it again, but it keeps telling me to keep logging in, and it tells me that I'm logged in, but won't let me file it yet. I believe the statement is the 22nd of this month. It has to be filed by.
I believe that is correct.
I think he's misunderstanding. It's the first one.
It's the original first one.
Right. He answered that portion. That he had filed one several months ago, at the first one that was required in March.
Yes.
Me, I'm next. Oh yeah, I filed it a couple of days after signing it as a requirement by law. I hate to think that if I didn't file it, I'm going to be breaking the law. Imagine if the chief law enforcement, well, the top cop breaking the law in Nye County. That's a very bad precedent to set for a cop, don't you think? But it was filed a couple of days after I signed up.
Are you asking if we filed it? Yes.
If so, when?
It's being prepared this weekend and going in Monday. Thank you.
So this where it's a test here. So I will admit, everybody in this room, that I just did it on Friday, and that was late. But that's the hardest part, right? When you're in office and stuff, just holding up and saying, I made a mistake, I learned from it. So it cost me $250.
I want you to know that I'm a not so proud member of the $250 a month club, but we did file it last night. Thank you.
There you go, Ray.
If I got a story for you. I'm computer illiterate, and I asked the clerk's office for the financial disclosure statement that they used to give us automatically when we filed for office. They said it's done by the Secretary of State. I said, you said you were going to have them here. They said, no, you go to the Secretary of State. So that's what I did. I asked for a waiver so I could do it paperwork style. And I did it immediately after I filed. Matter of fact, the day that I filed, the Ides of March, February 15th, we went back and forth for almost 30 days before I actually got the paperwork from the Secretary of State. I threatened to go to Barbara personally because her staff was not doing the job. When I said that, I got the response, I got the paperwork, I'm filed. I'm filed without penalty. They didn't charge me the $250. They said we waived all charges because of cause. And I filed my contribution statements a couple days ago, so I'm covered on that one too. There you go.
All right. No, I already answered the question, so I just ended up with it.
Okay. Tony's first on this one. All right, we're going to go back to a question that we were not able to ask earlier. The Sheriff's Office has recently switched from printed press releases to video press releases and only relying on the new county public information officer for certain information. What's your opinion of this new method of information distribution, and do you think the Nye County Sheriff's Office should be doing community news video press releases or releases related to just their office?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are you serious?
Well, a little bit, because I didn't actually understand the question, so.
You're a character. Thanks a lot. All right.
What kind of character? Am I a pretty character?
All right. The Sheriff's Office has recently switched from printed press releases to video press releases, and only relying on the county-funded public information officer for certain reports. What is your opinion of this method of information distribution, and do you think that the Nye County Sheriff's Office should be doing community news press releases or releases only related to their office?
Well, I mean,
Well, actually, I'm sorry, Gerald. You started the last question first, so the first person who will address this will be Tony.
Yeah, I've seen those. I'm not very impressed. It's up to the sheriff's office to bring the press in so they can ask the appropriate questions. What you have here is somebody just reading off a manuscript, putting out the news that the sheriff wants, and not necessarily the information that the citizens require and should have. That's going to be done away with. I have no problem calling the press in. I have no problem welcoming the press in to do live interviews on anything that's newsworthy. As far as using the sheriff's office website as a political tool, it's going to stop. It belongs to the citizens of Nye County, and it should be used to educate the citizens on the good stuff the sheriff's office is doing, the inclusion of the citizens into the sheriff's office because we work for you guys, and also making sure that the press is welcome at any time to ask the sheriff any question they want without reading off a piece of paper and getting information wrong. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Like I say, there's a lot of things that goes on there that I don't have privy to. This would be one of them. So I'm going to pass. He may have answers.
Thank you. Short answer, absolutely not. Longer answer, what the agency at this time is trying to do is take the place of the media, supplant the media. So instead of the media coming in and asking questions and the Sheriff's Department having to be responsive to the media, the Sheriff's Department is attempting to get out in front of that and give its version. That's not the way transparency works. It's not the way accountability works. We do that through our media. One of the other things that I intend to stop is the constant broadcasting on social media of the name of every single person arrested. For instance, a few years ago, there was an example. There was a politically motivated arrest. An individual was falsely arrested here in this town, and he had some political notoriety. Before he could even post bail and walk out, it was all over social media and then went to the dominant media about how this individual had been falsely arrested. It was in other words, it was a smear campaign. And of course, we all know that just because somebody's been arrested does not mean they are what? Guilty. But yet this sheriff's agency right now makes that immediate information to the entire community, even in cases of false arrests or minor or trivial arrests. Now, do we want to know if we have major child molesters or bank robbers or things like that? Absolutely. But on the whole, that information should not be spread within minutes all over social media, and I won't permit it as your sheriff. Thank you.
We're all very on the same page when it comes to the media. I believe that Facebook and all those things are great to reach new people, younger people who may not be reading print paper or things like that. But when you have complete control of what goes out of the sheriff's office, again, that shows you have no intention of being transparent. The public has the right to know all information, and that's done by the traditional media outlets. Again, I noticed the broadcasting of people who are arrested. They're arrested, and they're not only their picture, their age, the charges that were placed against them, all posted immediately after the arrest. And what that does is, again, that's going to discredit that person's character. They could lose their jobs over things like that. Sure, it's public information. You go on a jail website or anything like that, court records, it's public information. But again, they haven't been found guilty, and those things are pushing for employers and things like that, family members, to see that that person has been arrested, and it leads them to believe that they've been found guilty of a crime, whether they have or have not. My goal is to have the public in the know of what crimes are being committed, but it's not necessarily important the name of the person committing them. It is important that the public knows that there are X amount of burglaries that have been happening in these areas. And it would be important if on the website it was accessible for everybody to know that these amount of these crimes have been committing in your areas and things like that. Thank you.
I agree with Asa. This is pretty much across the board. I think going overboard with media before anybody knows what's really going on is not a good thing. Case in point, even on the civil side, Art Bell just passed away, and before his family could be notified, and against the wishes of the family, the Sheriff's Department issued a statement that he had passed before some of his own family knew. That's unacceptable. We need to be with each other, but there's a time and a place to release information. You have to be smart enough to know the difference. Thank you.
The mere accusation ruins a person's life. We can see this with this Me Too movement, where people are coming from 30 and 40 years ago and making accusations and ruining people's lives. There's no way to really prove what happened 30 or 40 years ago, but yet it's happening, and it's going to so many famous people right now. But it could happen to you or me, where someone could accuse us of something that happened, what they say happened years ago. Why put somebody's name out there just on an accusation locally on these crimes and everything else, where people say, oh, I saw it in the paper, oh, the flagman spit on the sidewalk last week, you know, we gotta do something about it. So this is what, let the process take care of itself. If they're arrested or whatever, eventually it'll all come out. Don't ruin their lives with a smear campaign right from the get-go. And as far as my comments on the Me Too movement, I'm firm that people's lives are being ruined, and it should not be happening just on the accusation. If there's proof, some of these people should go down and really suffer the consequences. But the accusation is not sufficient in my mind. Thank you.
So I'm almost tempted to ask you to say the question again, but I think I think that yes, everything is public information, everything, because that's what the public's paying for. They should be able to have it where it's tangible, where it's readable, where I can carry it, where I know what it's saying without somebody else telling me what it's saying, how it's interpreted. The next thing, based on what everybody else was saying, that no, there shouldn't be any publicity brought to you until you are actually found guilty. Secondly, when we're reporting, the reporting is very, very important, that we get all information that we can from every side, every angle. Then, if it's dispersed out, let people make a decision on what's going on. But when we're only taking one party's report, it might not be accurate, it might not be, and again, people will just, more information the better, for somebody to make an informed decision, not just an incompetent one. So, and that's why the founding fathers actually wrote everything down, and they wrote it down not just on paper, but on actual leathers and stuff like that, so they would be around for longer than paper would be, and that they were tangible. So, thank you.
Is there any rebuttals?
One of the questions reference to public information. However, the Sheriff's Office doesn't put any disclaimer on that these people are innocent until proven guilty. News does that. I think the best forum for information coming out and getting to the public is through the news services, not necessarily through a website that's being used for the grandiose behavior of people within the Sheriff's Office, starting from the top and management. And Ray's right. It's embarrassing for people to get their not only their name splattered all over, but all over internationally, because no news is local. Thank you.
Okay, this will be our final question, and then we'll have closing statements. In case the audience doesn't know what POST means, it's Police Officer Standards Training. And this will be our last question, which is going to Joe Moffitt to begin with, which is, are you now, or have you ever been POST certified? If so, in what state?
Yes, I was POST certified in Las Vegas, Nevada. to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
Next, Dave. Passes, Dave.
I am not currently post-certified. The work my company did in California was under California Bureau of SIS. I'm looking forward to becoming post-certified here in Nevada. It's one of the requirements once I'm elected as sheriff. I have 365 days under the law to become post-certified in the state of Nevada. So why am I looking forward to that, in addition to all the other work I have before me? Well, I think it's going to be kind of cool, because by the time I get out of the academy, I'm going to be 60. I hope to set the record as the oldest guy to ever graduate from academy in the state of Nevada. One of the things that's important about post-certification is it provides all of the foundation that our new deputies need in order to do their job correctly. And post-certification is not optional, and post-certification is part of the academy process. Academies have to be post-certified. So when I talk about the changes that need to be made in the academy here at Nye County so that we have accountability, so that I'm accountable to you and the deputies are accountable to me, there is a framework that has to be followed, but we can certainly inculcate principles that are desperately missing now. Thank you.
I currently hold my Nevada post certificates. I have my basic, intermediate, and advanced certificates. I graduated from the Department of Public Safety's Academy in Carson City, first in the class, so day one I'll be ready to go.
I've held numerous. My first one was in California in 1982 at Rio Hondo Police Department, at their academy there. Then I went on to the feds and have been through multiple, they don't call them posts, all the way up to a commander's position. And then in 2013, I gained my Nevada post, what they call in lieu, meaning you've gone through so many academies, they don't make you go through another one other than you have to learn their laws, qualify, and do the physical.
I am not post-certified. To run for sheriff, you do not have to be post-certified. If you win the election, you have 1 year, as Dave Champion pointed out, to go through the academy and get some certification. There's also a 6-month extension period that you can apply for at that time. I think that was done by Undersheriff Moody when he was in, because he was not post-certified. Also, these decisions can be challenged in court. All this happened in about 2010 because a millionaire ran for sheriff in Clark County against the badges that were running, and the legislature thought that was improper, and so they passed a statewide law that you have to be post-certified to run for sheriff in all the major counties, but in the smaller counties you have the 1 year exemption. And that's what it applied to me, and it would apply to anybody else. They would have the 1 year, 365 days, plus a 6-month extension if you applied for it. And there's also legal action in front of the Supreme Court under the American for Disabilities Act for people who may be 73 years old and not be in a physical position to do some of the tests. There you go.
I'll make this short and simple. I don't have it, but when I get it, I'm going to get the hell out of it. So no, I am going to work on it. I've called around. I just didn't have the money to. That's why I was very excited about that one question earlier, because I did call Silver State and they're like $6,000. I was like, ah! And then I tried to get a job here at the Nye County Sheriff's Department under Sharon, and Detective Klenzar was like, no, you have an integrity issue. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just run for sheriff then.
When I was the president of Sheriffs and Chiefs, I actually fought for legislation making sure that any person applying for or being a law enforcement officer as sheriff or should be post-certified. So it was under 2007, it wasn't 2010. I was certified as a police officer in Jersey City 1973. I retired in 1998. I was hired by Nye County Sheriff's Office, K-9 deputy. I went to the in lieu of Academy in 1999. I have my basic, I have all the post certificates, including the highest one you can get is the executive post. I received my executive post certificate in 2005. My post is still currently active, so I don't have to go through the academy. I do keep myself in shape because I think the top cop should be in shape as much as everybody else does in the sheriff's office. We have to set an example. But yeah, I'm post certified, and my post is current within the state of Nevada. So when I'm elected sheriff, I don't have to go through a post academy. I can just go back into the job. And the office I held for 12 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttals, anyone? No, I didn't think so. We're going to begin our closing statements with Dave Champion. Everybody has a minute and a half.
Thank you all for being here. What you're doing today is the important part of self-governance. There's a lot of fine gentlemen up here today. So the question is, who are you going to vote for? Well, by my standards, you want to vote for the person who has some background that's relevant, who has passion, who has vision, who has a plan. Let me share with you an additional facet that I think is important. The problems we're experiencing here in Nye County are not just limited in Nye County. If you turn on the nightly news, whether it's local news, state news, or federal news, national news, you see the same problems exist all across the country. Law enforcement's having a difficult time right now. So let me share a perspective with you. Whenever a law enforcement official is elected, such as the sheriff, almost always we choose somebody who comes out of the law enforcement industry. They've spent a lifetime in that industry, and they bring all the problems to being the top cop that they acquired in that industry. I would suggest perhaps somebody who has the background and experience but has not been in the industry for the last 25 years is exactly what it takes to correct the problems. If you agree with me when you go in the voting booth on June 12th, please push Champion. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming and seeing all what we have to say today. Just know that, coming here isn't the last step. You need to gather the information that you received today and make sure you're spreading the word about what you heard today and make that educated vote. You don't just go by what's familiar or, the business as usual stuff. If you want something different, you got to vote for something different, and I'm something different. I'm young. I'm still in law enforcement. I am not retired from law enforcement. I still have a job to go back to someday. I can't just escape once I'm done with this and just go back on my pension. My reputation is on the line with this, and I, from day one until I am out of the office, will give 100%. Thank you.
I think what it boils down to is experience, and I've done it all, and I've done it well. Like I said, I was the only Fed that got the State Attorney General's Award for the state of California to make departments work together. The Marshal Service is the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the United States. There are 238 years or so. There are only 32 Director's Awards, and I hold one on my wall, and I'm very proud of it. Not because I looked cute or any of those things. I went out and made things happen. Bottom line is this: you cannot buy experience. You either got it or you don't. There's a lot of people up here that are young that don't have experience, but I'd hate to be running against them 15 years from now. But right now is where we're at. Thank you.
She has sent out swarms of agents to eat out our substance. In the unanimous declaration, the Declaration of Independence, it was mentioned about the King of England, who had done the same thing. This is happening right now in Nye County. Our sheriff, our existing sheriff, has done it to us and is doing it on a daily basis. Let's stop this insanity. If you're going to consider anybody for sheriff, look at the people on the stage here in front of you. Do not go for the incumbent on this one, because the department is out of control. She has no real discipline against the people in the department. She refuses to do anything as far as that goes, and it should not continue to go on. Now, a couple points I want to reestablish. No more roadblocks if I'm elected. No more entrapment. No more high-speed chases. This is insane. And warning tickets for small infractions. I mean, this is ridiculous that people are paying all their money. So that's what I'm going to do when elected sheriff, and it's up to you. But anybody...
All right, we're good now. Thank you.
Alrighty. But in my closing statement, you know, I realize that I come across with a lot of jokes, with a lot of funny stuff and a lot of goofiness. I generally am a very stern person. I find that the goofiness, the everything, all that helps me relate to people a lot better. I am one of you guys, like I said before. I've done everything that you've had to do. I know what it's like to live like you guys. I still live like you guys. I'm not saying that I'm up here, but, you know, but no, I don't have much experience, nor do I have any bad habits either from that experience. Also, experience is like love. I can't buy it, but I can hire it. But I do have the compassion. I do have logic. I will research. I will do everything it takes to make any situation right. If I have to, I'll take the time to make it right. I will do the research. I'll make sure that you guys are being treated properly. I'll make sure that my guys are being trained properly. I'll make sure that, most of all, I'll make sure that you are being respected. They don't know who I am. They don't know where I'll be. I'll be dressed in Walmart in dirty rags and clothes listening to them talk to somebody. Just the other day, I was sitting in the gas station listening to them give a sobriety test in oily, dirty clothes. They didn't know who I was, but I was listening. You know, I will monitor, I will educate, and I will motivate. I can make this town better. I can reach out to people. I will hire the best. I will make sure that my personnel will get the best training, and they will constantly get the best training, and I will constantly keep raising the bars. Time. Thank you.
Tony DeMeo, and I'm asking for your vote and support. Rebuilding the department to what it once was, a professional sheriff's office dedicated to service to all the citizens of Nye County. Those are the words of a fellow candidate who's running for sheriff. It's kind of interesting because that's what I did. He's reflecting on my administration, not reflecting on Wade's administration or the present sheriff's administration. It was mine. Working with the community, working within the sheriff's office to do that, to make all the communities know that the sheriff's office all over Nye County cared for them and was in their service. That doesn't come unless you have experience in management and dedicated and hardworking, working with everyone. And that's what I did. I've worked with federal agencies in Jersey City when the 1993 World Trade Center bombing happened. I was part of the task force that was there working with every agency, federal and local, including NYPD. In Nye Sheriff as Nye County, I worked with every organization there was. Metro was Metro, and when there was a deputy that committed a violation of constitutional rights, I was the one who called the FBI in to investigate that. Any constitutional rights violation, I call them to do that, working with the federal government and making sure that we have an outside observer, making sure that we do things right, and we have somebody, if we don't, to hold us to the challenge, not just the citizens. I welcome your vote, and I thank you so much for your time and attention.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing I want to do is let you know that we are so proud of you for coming here to help us find the man who's going to be, or the woman, but I don't think there's any running this time. You want the best, the top of the mark, the best town needs the best sheriff for the best people. Thank you very much.
Well, that concludes the debate.